me, but I'm a and you know what? I'm dressed. That's a big plus. So thank you all again for waiting. Latasha should be back on because she called to see if I had gone crazy. I'm not. Just trying to figure out who's going to pick up this food. So I noticed we had quite a few people on too. Somebody say good morning so I at least know people hear me.
Good morning,
Good
Mayor.
morning.
Morning, Mayor
Okay.
Miles.
At least people hear me. Thank you so much. Somebody got a nice, is that a piano in the background? No. Okay. We're supposed to have a public hearing regarding proposed real property tax and proposed FY 2022 budget. That was to start at 9 o'clock, and needless to say, it's 9:07. So my apologies, please. If you're ready, I'm ready to call to order our meeting and hearing. And the agenda is, as I've read it earlier, the public hearing regarding proposed real property tax and proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. May I get a motion to approve this agenda?
Mayor,
Yes.
before you move it, are we just approving the hearing or the full agenda? Because there's a change that needs to
I'm
be made
asking
to
to
the agenda.
approve just what I read, the first few pieces. Then I would come back and open up the work session because this is not the part of the work session today.
Okay.
But I'm with you. You say do it all at one time?
We could. There's one.
But I
change in the
wasn't
agenda we're
proposing
gonna-
that. Is that what you would like to do?
Yeah, we could do that, and I would like to make a change on the agenda.
Well, see, that's why I didn't want to go to the work session agenda. I
There's
just
a
want to get
motion
rid
on-
of the hearing.
I think there was a motion.
There was a motion and a second. That's
I
true. All
seconded.
those in favor of the agenda as read, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. The public hearing is open. I'd like to turn it over to Latasha to present the proposed real property tax and the proposed budget for 2022. Latasha?
Good morning. I'm going to first turn it over to Mr. Rawlins so he can go over the property tax aspect. And then we'll get into the budget.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rollins. You have the floor.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Council members. You all can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the notice that we have already sent out for the real property taxes. And basically we're looking to maintain the same rate of the tax rate, which is 0.81 of 100 per 100 assessment for the real property taxes. That will increase the taxes by 6.4%, resulting in 182,931 in increase in real property taxes revenues for single-family homes. Now, according to the state, if there are other, I know we have other classes, and if there's not really much of an increase by 25%, the state only requires the amount for the real estate, but for the the consistency what we've done in the past and being full transparency, I put together a schedule of all the classes so you, the council, and the residents can see the differences in comparing to the tax rate and staying with the same tax rate in comparison to the county year.
Okay, thank you so very much for that presentation. I don't know about anyone else, but I have a question. So I'm gonna see if anyone else asks my question, and then if they don't, I will. I'm gonna start with Ward 2. Brian, I just saw Scott come in. So start to go with Scott, but I'll go with Brian first since I called him. Then Scott, then to Selena, then to Luke.
I don't have any questions on it.
All right, Scott.
Sure that I have a question other than a comment that I'm sure y'all hear this all the time too. I hear from residents very frequently that they think taxes are too high. So I hope that we can have a conversation about things we can do to potentially lower the tax rates rather than keeping them the same.
Okay, we can probably have that conversation. What is on the floor right now is that the tax rate as presented here has already been put out in notice as we are required to do. And so if that makes sense to you, that's what we're on at the moment.
It makes sense, and I didn't actually have a question. It was just a statement.
All right, thank you so much. Selena?
Yeah, I see what it looks like, and I definitely would like the staff to give us a budget that reflects potentially 2 cents under, if not 1, in order for us to reduce the residential, commercial, and townhouse taxes.
Okay, same thing that I kind of said to Scott. This is the rate that has been put out there. It is the rate hearing that we're discussing here. When we get to budget, both of those questions would be applicable. At this moment, are there questions on what is being proposed, what has been publicized?
Thank you.
All right, Luke? Luke, can you hear me?
Yep, sorry, I was on mute. Shared interest of Scott and Selena, but no questions.
All right, thank you so very much. If I make no mistake, then that takes us to the hearing. Am I correct, Latasha? I believe I am. All right.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You have to allow the public the opportunity to speak if they have
well,
anything to say about the budget.
I was going to go to the public. Are there anything else? Oh, okay. Are there any persons in the audience that would like to speak on the proposed, not the proposed, the rates that have been publicized? And I really can't see who's in the audience. Where's my people sign? Do we have anyone else in our group? Participants. I'm there. Yes, there are 13 participants out there. Any comments from the participants? Hearing none, now I can go to the public hearing. I don't need to vote on what's there at the moment because we still need to take that up in our budget discussion, correct? Latasha? Okay, then we're open to the public hearing on the 2022 proposed budget for this.
This was
Latasha, you were speaking.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, sorry, my Wi-Fi was shifting over. So no, we had, so the public hearing is for the for this aspect of it, as well as the budget. So if there are any comments that the public wants to make about the budget, this is the time to do so now, so you guys can consider them in your work session, which is next. Because
and I think that's what I just said. But okay, any of my public out there are wishing to speak on anything that has been presented and or the budget that has been proposed.
I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that, because I don't want anyone to come back and say that, well, she only said, they only said the tax. I didn't know I could speak on the budget. So I just want to make sure the public knows this is your time. If there's something that you saw, because the budget has been published out to the public for about a month now, I think, John.
It's been a
So
month.
the public has had ample time
correct.
to review it, download it, or, obtain it. So if there are any questions or comments, I do know that I want to put on the record that a couple of the committees did submit some requests. And I think one was the Green Team, Luke?
I think the Green Team submitted
And the Tree Commission?
and the Tree Commission.
Okay. And
Both
I
of those
let them
did.
know. Yeah, I let them know that Luke would take care of that during the work session. Or not
Okay.
take care of it, but, address.
Address it and put it out there.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else?
Jared is telling me there's no comments on Facebook.
Okay. And I'm looking, I see Jared there. I see Nicole Logan. Okay, I see those. They're all council. I see Anna, I believe. I don't see anyone else in the chat. See, I've gotten better. I can actually see the chat these days. All right. If there are no other comments for public hearing, I need a motion to close the public hearing as well as the presentation on the tax rate. May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing the public hearing and the meeting on the tax rate, let it be known by aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that portion of our day is concluded. Thank you all so very much, and thank you for those who were there to participate in the hearing. We're now ready to look at and review the agenda for the work session. So may I get the work session back up on the screen, please?
Yes, ma'am. Coming up.
We are now into the proposed work session for proposed FY 2022 budget work session of the Mayor and Council. This part of the meeting is being called to order at 9:17 a.m. We're doing the call to order, a review of the agenda, which is the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget review, and then adjournment. Anything else that we need to talk about within the budget agenda, not for other items?
Hi, Mayor, this is Lena. There is for the 10 a.m. City Hall and for the Economic Development 11:30 to switch places. That has been requested by staff and it will not affect anybody else. So I'm proposing
I don't know what
that
you just said. Say it to me one more time, please.
The proposal for the agenda is currently we have, I think that's remove it, for 10 a.m. for City Hall to present and Economic Development to present at 11:30. The proposal is for those two bodies to switch times, leaving Economic Development not to present at 10 and City Hall to present at 11:30.
All right, Natasha, did you get that? And council, is that something you're willing to do? Hearing no objection, I have no problem with switching the times for each person, each presentation. So may we make that adjustment now, please?
Thank
Yes,
you.
it's done. I just don't know. I don't know how to make this bold, but I've switched them on here.
Then it doesn't have to be bold. As long as everybody else can see it, I can't, I'm good. All right. Then may I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by aye.
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 Opposition, hearing none. The agenda is approved as presented. Thank you so much, and thanks for the adjustment. Okay. Mayor and Council, you have the floor, and it is before 9:30. So if you need, oh no, it's 9:30, 9:20. Let's keep it ahead of time. I think we can get out of here. I got food to distribute.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I apologize. Okay, this is a little different than how we did it last year. John, I need you to control the screen because I can't. So do you have this pulled up? Can you control the screen so that they can see this live binder? Because I need to be able to make changes in Excel, and I can't do that if I have this
Okay,
on my
I can
screen.
do that. I can do
All right,
that.
can you share your screen? Does it give you that option?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Hold on, let me get
Thank
my.
you. I'm sorry. I apologize, Mayor. It's just, last year we had paper.
May I say this, Latasha, and it's not an apology needed. I decided to try to do this before coming online earlier today, like early this morning. And I said, wow, what a difference a year makes. I've been planning all week to come to City Hall. Nothing in my brain said Zoom. And then I went and looked at the budget, and the budget is all Zoom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to figure out how to work this. I did. So I think everybody else maybe have had a chance to play with it, but even if they haven't, know we're going to get through this. One of the things I figured out trying to do it over here is once you click on the heading, if you go down to the very last thing underneath and click on the PDF file, it will pop up on your screen the way you want it to.
I'm trying to get up there for it.
Thank you. Yeah, this is John. John is so creative with this. I had no idea this even existed.
It was
John,
too creative for me, and
Yeah,
I
I'm trying
just
to get
asked the question, why didn't we just put it in Word and just go down page by page?
Sorry, I'm trying to
John
share.
is fancy.
I've got it here. Let me just try to share it now. Hold on.
At the bottom, I made you the presenter. So at the bottom, you see where it says share.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yep, going up here now.
Okay.
Go to share. Yep, got it.
And then you should share your internet screen.
Screen. Okay, here we go. It
should be
says
the screen.
sharing your entire screen. Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry.
It's not giving me the option. It just says share and cancel.
It should be a screen.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
There we go. Yep. Okay, I can see me.
And then there's that.
Yeah, but go to the.
Oh, that's mayor and council right here.
Yep. Okay. You're gonna have to make it bigger so
Okay,
Mayor can see it. Can everyone see that? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
You have the floor, Brian.
When do we discuss revenue?
Now.
Oh, because you look like you're going to expenses.
No, he just pulled up what was on his screen. I need you to go to the first. You need to start at the beginning, John.
Okay, hold on. Moving out. Move to the beginning. FY22.
Go to. Yes. Wait, no, go back. I want to go to the organizational chart first. Can we start there?
Yeah.
Is there some changes on that? Is that okay with Mayor and Council?
Yes.
Okay. May I talk?
Quick comment before we get on that. Latasha, in your intro letter, you need to. It says it's approved, and this is the proposed. So just
That's
if you
a
could.
typo.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Ray, can you have that note? Mr. Rollins, can you make that change?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Brian. All right, Mayor, may I present the new org chart or?
You have the floor.
Thank you.
And in fact, if you want to take us through this budget and then kind of tell us, like we normally do, get each one of us, have us talk to you, ask questions, have you present. So I would like to follow that format, even if we're not all in the same room, which I found interesting because our Board of Elections actually met downtown to make their decisions. Thank you.
All right. So here we have the FY 2022 proposed organizational chart for the city of Mount Rainier. So there are for the most part, everything is the same. However, there's a few slight changes. And we'll start on the far left of your screen. Under Director of Finance, we have the staff accountant, one person there. Excuse me, the senior staff accountant, one person, a new position of a staff accountant for one person, and then of course the system analyst, asset coordinator. So what we did here was, as you may have remember when we completed the audits, one of the things that we kept getting dinged on, so to speak, was the lack of staff and that there needed to be more staff in the finance department to keep up with the duties in that area. So we put that in the proposed budget to add that position of the staff accountant. And that person would basically take over some of what the senior staff is currently doing, but also some other items as well. So that position is much needed to function so that the finance department can function. Mr. Rawlins, did I leave out anything? I don't want to cut you short of what that new position will hold.
Basically, you're correct. It's we're really investing resources to make certain that the department has timely closing the books, analysis, reporting, so anything that's asked so we can look at for the benefit of the city, and keeping the audit current, particularly not only just meeting, complying to the state requirements, but from time to time that now more and more we seem to have an increase in grant activity. It's not surprising that grantors will ask for an audit and a current one when times of looking at funding, along with if the city has the option of looking at financing the same thing. Your banks or other institutions are going to always ask for up-to-date, most current audit, which is beneficial when getting approval for financing or even grants. So, and then the other aspect is it provides a backup support for maintaining services. There's a big difference when you got two people and one is out for bid for a period of time. It tends to put a strain on the other person trying to maintain services for the city. So this is, reasons that that this is needed for.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlins.
Or at least requested, I could say that.
Okay. So moving on to the next, we have economic development is the same, public works is the same. Police department, we have a couple of changes here. Currently, we have a chief, assistant chief, and a lieutenant. So the proposed structure, and this structure was actually proposed by former chief Morgan. Thank you. I was about to say former Chief Austin. Former Chief Morgan and current Chief Austin put his finishing touches on it when we were creating this. So basically, we're going to have two lieutenants. One will be an administrative lieutenant, and that person will be in the direct supervisor, so to speak, for the permit tech, code compliance, as well as parking enforcement. Then we would have a patrol lieutenant who is supervising the patrol. So all of the sergeants, the detectives, the corporals, and the officers. So one of the things we're doing is we're trying to shift, so to speak, the duties, because right now it was the chief, then the assistant chief was basically the supervisor for everybody, code and for the police officers. So we're trying to kind of divide those duties as well as the administrative portion. And then, of course, we have the records manager and admin assistant. Everything else is the same, except we are adding an auto theft detective because, as you know, we have a number, auto thefts have increased in the city. So we want to have a detective who, that's not their sole job, but that is what their focus is. Of course, they'll go out on patrol and do those type of things, but they'll also be in charge of investigating those auto theft crimes. We also have a community problem solving officer that we're adding into here as well. And that officer is dedicated to making sure that we are maintaining that community presence and that we're listening and we're hearing what the community is saying. Chief Austin, I want to give you the opportunity to speak on this in case I've missed something important.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Currently, I want to make sure you all know that the auto theft detective is that salary is being carried by a $125,000 grant from the Department of Justice, the cops hiring grant. So that $125,000 is spread over 3 years. And so the actual new addition will be that community problem solving officer in our next budget.
Which is also not a part of the city tax dollars, but a grant that you sought and got and now would be using for this position.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, and I don't have any more to add, Natasha.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So a quick question before you leave the police department. What would be the total number of staff in that department? And how many of those will be officers on the street that would be actually out patrolling?
The total number for that department would be 21. The total number of officers would be 17.
Okay.
And that
So-
includes the chief.
Okay, so actual acting patrol officers are going to be less than the 18 previously, and management is going to be increased by 1. So you'll have 3 at the top level of your management chart, with the chief being over the 2 lieutenants, being your 3 admin, whatever. Who will be over your civilian staff in the front offices?
The chief of police. If you see on the chart, the records management and an admin assistant, they fall under the chief. They're on the left side.
Okay, well, remember, I can't see because it's small, and you don't need to make it bigger. I just
You
need
sure?
to hear it.
Okay.
I'm good. I can hear it, and I'm good. Okay, so then everything else will fall down as laid out in the charts.
Absolutely.
Any questions from council on the police department?
Yes.
Please speak.
This is Scott Cecil. I counted 24 people, Latasha, so I'm guessing you're not.
My number's wrong.
I thought you were maybe not counting the code compliance staff, but
Oh, I wasn't. I'm sorry. I didn't. They're in this on my chart. They're in a separate department. I apologize. I didn't. So you're correct.
it's all good. I just wanted to make sure we're clear about
It's
that.
24.
Because it looks
It's
like
24 total.
Yes.
it looks like according to this chart, we no longer have a code compliance department because it's completely under the police. I
It's
mean, that's what it looks like.
it
Thank you,
falls.
Scott.
Thank you, Skia. Thank you, Scott. It is a separate department, but who they report to is under the administrative lieutenant.
Well, question, Mayor.
Oh, you have the floor.
Latasha, who are our 2 lieutenants right now? Is it correct that only one of those positions is full since
Correct.
since Mr. Alston is acting as police chief? Okay,
Correct.
So
We only have one is open.
got it. Thank you.
Any other
adminis-
questions?
The administrative one's the one that's open. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor.
You have the floor, Luke.
Thank you. It's a little confusing to me because when Chief Morgan first came in, and when we first moved from patrol-based policing to community-based policing, and we hired the detective, that's when we got rid of the assistant chief position, and we went to 2 lieutenants. And 1 lieutenant was over the community police officer and the detective, and 1 lieutenant was over patrol. So similar to what you guys put here, although code at the time was in its own box. When did we go back to having an assistant chief? That's news to me. So it's kind of.
I think that they were calling him the assistant chief because when I got here, he was known as the assistant chief.
Okay.
So I think that's what they were calling him, but on paper, it's something different.
Okay.
So
All right,
that's
thank
why
you.
I made it a point to say it in this meeting so that we can get out of saying the assistant chief. And that's why I'm not going to have that, but that's what they were calling him. So
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I'm just trying to get our language to match our chart.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Selena.
Selena?
Yeah, I honestly, I was looking into having code department to be its own. At this point, it looks like it falls under police, and originally it was supposed to be a Band-Aid remedy until we got a director. I definitely would like to see a director in a department, so a department is running. Because am I correct in saying that administrative lieutenant is not gonna have code director experience?
I can't say that is 100% correct. In conversations I've had with Alston, we discussed creating that job position where it kind of encompasses all, because they need to kind of understand how permitting works. They kind of need to understand code, and they need to understand parking.
But
So
will they
that-
have licenses that go along with it? Any certifications that go along?
We
to
can
be able
put
to
that
do the
in.
job of it?
We can put that in a requirement. Again, this position is something new. So the job description is basically what we make it. And if that's a requirement, we can make that a requirement. We can say you have to have X, Y, and Z certifications, or, you know, have X, Y, and Z experience. Again, this is a new position that's not filled, something that is new. It's not a new position in name, but it's a new position in which the job description or the job duties are. So that's something that can definitely be added. I mean, it's not written yet.
Afraid that
May I interrupt for 1 minute, please? I think you're missing her point, Latasha.
Okay.
And council, you all need to listen to this very carefully. One of the things I know I didn't vote to give up, and Selena has constantly reminded and pushed, and she's now saying it out loud again today. None of us ever, to my knowledge, decided to cut the director of code compliance. And what I'm not hearing is that there is a position for the director of code compliance. What I am hearing is that the quote new lieutenant administrative position would take over code compliance and be responsible for the admin work that goes over it. You would still not have a director of code compliance. Am I quoting that correctly, Latasha?
Yes, ma'am.
So, council, the question becomes, are we agreeing to not have a director of code compliance, and that code compliance would fall directly under the new lieutenant for administration?
This is Brian.
Okay, Brian.
I think as long as that person has certification, I'm good with it. We are extremely
Top heavy.
Top heavy, thank you. With staff, we're adding yet another position.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we can, I just don't know how this little town can keep adding people. We're just not big enough to have all these directors. It's just, I'm just going to say it, it's out of control. And I'm not going to be on council this coming year, so you all have to deal with it, but this is just completely out of control.
Thank you for saying it out loud, because I was going to get to my question very soon. Anyone else wishing to comment on this process and on the chart in particular? I heard a yes, but I don't know who it's coming from.
It was Luke, and I think Selena has her hand raised, so I'll let Selena go first because I think she still had the floor.
She does. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you this. I think the pool of having somebody that's PD, you know, experience as well as code certified, is gonna be a needle in a haystack. And we do need a code director. It wouldn't be adding a director, it will be holding the position that currently was there, and it looked like a race for a while. But to me, it feels like we definitely need to do that, and I find it very hard for us to be able to find both, because that lieutenant is also going to have to be dealing with the administrative work of PD and also directing code. And we do need another person certified to be able to help the two inspectors. Our workload of code is so much right now still that we keep piling on it. And as hard as the staff is trying, we're not going to get out of that. Our apartments need to be inspected, and having just two inspectors is just not going to do it. And even adding 3 is not going to help. We need a director to be able to also lead that department without having to break them into 3 different parts.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 questions, one for Latasha and then one for Brian, and maybe Mayor Miles. The first one's for Latasha. What I hear people saying is they'd like a code director, which is fine. Keeping that, so whether we call it an administrative lieutenant, whether we call it a code director, it's almost a matter of who they're reporting to. If we call it a code director, maybe they're their own department and they report to the city manager. If we call it the administrative lieutenant, they report to the chief of police. So I think folks need to decide what they want there as far as a reporting structure is concerned. My question for Latasha is keeping that position housed in the chief of police, does that open up the ability for us to spend revenue that we get from things like speed camera money, everything else? Does it allow us to fund those positions through that revenue? That's the question for Latasha. And then the question for Brian and the mayor are, I hear you on being top heavy. I would just like to know if you guys have positions that you think are too much for us in the top heavy category, like looking at the red boxes, or maybe it's the black boxes. You know, it would be helpful to know that to talk about it. If you want to talk about that offline, you can reach out to me offline as well. Thanks.
So
No, I think we should definitely talk about it online, because the public has a right to know exactly what they're paying for out of their tax dollars. So Latasha, answer Luke, and then Brian, please respond, and I will certainly respond after Brian.
Okay. So to answer your question, yes, because as long as the speed camera funds can be used for things that are public safety. You can use speed camera funds on the streets and sidewalk.
Yes, you can.
So as long as it's anything about dealing with public safety, then you can. Yeah. So yeah, you can fund some things out of code compliance with street camera funds, to answer your question.
Okay,
you can.
thank you.
Okay, that's it. Was that the only part?
Brian, that was the question.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Brian?
So we were saying that the speed camera money could be used even if code compliance was a separate department. Doesn't have to be under the police department.
No.
As long as it's safety related.
As long as it's safety related.
Okay.
We can use it in.
Changes, yeah.
We can use it in.
My opinion, my calculation here. So so if we have a director of code compliance, are we still going to have the administrative lieutenant, or is it just switching out the title and separating it from the police department? Seems like that's all you're doing.
That's up to mayor and council, but we still will need, because you still have that permit tech and that parking enforcement who will ultimately need a supervisor. So I guess then you would say they report to the chief of police?
No, they're going to report to the code compliance director. It's a separate department.
The admin.
You want to take that whole section and move it? Okay.
Right. So if we create a code compliance director, then we don't need the administrative lieutenant. Or do you need 2 lieutenants in the police department for some reason?
Well, you will be taking away a police officer, so that'll drop your number for police officers.
You need an administrative as well.
Selena, let Brian finish, please.
So
if you take that out, you're going to drop 1 police officer.
But the administrative lieutenant wasn't really on the street anyway.
But he could be on the street. And like right now, when we're short staffed, chief is out patrolling.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. I kind of like it personally.
I mean,
so as far as discussing which positions I think could be or might be eliminated, I'm not going to do that except for in a closed session. That's personnel, and I don't want to, panic anybody. We've done that in the past. That's not in my opinion, a healthy thing to do. Morale-wise, so I am not going to comment on which positions I think could be eliminated at this point.
Can I make one comment, Mayor, about because Brian said funding. So keep in mind also, through that COPS grant, we're able to fund 1 police officer, and through some other grants that we've received, for instance, with the speed camera, we can fund anyone who spends hours doing the speed, approving the tickets. That money is paid for out of a separate pot. So that administrative lieutenant, that could be, again, part of their salary being paid for by speed cameras, because they're also approving speed camera tickets, because you have to be certified to do it. So I think that we have to look at this in a broader scope, so to speak, of how we can best utilize our funds, because the moment you take that position out, you're losing the opportunity to have it fund through other means, i.e. speed camera.
Mayor?
Because that's the only position that, I want to be clear, the speed camera funds can be used to pay the officer that is approving the tickets.
Because it is public safety.
It is correct. So, but it can't be paid, it cannot pay an officer's salary, so to speak, but it can pay the officer who is approving the ticket. So I want to make that clear. And that's one of the things we wanted that administrative lieutenant to do, was to be certified to be able to approve the tickets, so that portion of their salary was being covered out of. So that was also the rationale. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I didn't say that before.
Okay, Selena, you keep saying mayor, so I'm going to let you go, but I am going to speak eventually. And Scott has not had a bite at this apple at all.
Thank
So,
you.
Selena, you have the floor again.
Yeah, well, I wasn't finished when I had originally. So
Well, you
no,
have it now. You got it.
so the administrative lieutenant is going to be needed. He was just going to be doing double function. The other question I had in the budget, the program manager in public works is in a black box, but I don't see any of the other tech assistants. I'm assuming that's Rocio's job, right? As a red, so she is administrative. And last thing I need to ask you, Latasha, just for clarity, I see ones or threes all over the place. Are any of this half position, or are we doing full time on everybody?
No, everybody's not full time. The grant and the social services are part time. The one is representing people, it's bodies.
Excuse me. May I stop this part of this conversation? We were on the police department, and now we're across the whole organizational chart. And I would like to speak on the police department before we go to all the others. And Scott hasn't had an opportunity to do that. So, Selena, for your question about the entire chart and the blocks, we'll come back to that. But remember, we were only talking about the police department. Scott.
Thank you. I've definitely gone back and forth on whether or not we should have a code compliance director. I know when we had budget conversations this time last year, I was against it. And then in a meeting a few months ago, I acknowledged, I was like, I think Selena was right about this. We should have a code compliance director. I think I've changed my mind again. What Brian was saying before about being a little top heavy resonates with me. And I also, I'm not saying that others don't trust the staff. I believe that all 5 of us do. So I don't mean to imply that, but I trust the staff and the decisions they made here. The layout here makes sense to me. I do understand that it's a concern that we want this administrative lieutenant to have code compliance experience and certifications and anything else. As Latasha mentioned, we can add that to the job description. I don't mean to switch departments on you, Mayor. I just am noting that the social services coordinator is not listed under the police department anymore. So that is an interesting change and something that I just noticed a few moments ago. And I think that's a good change. One question that I do have, or a suggestion that I would ask you to make, Latasha, is it would make, if we're going to go with this structure and have the 2 lieutenants and not have a code compliance director, which is what I personally support at this moment, does it not make sense to put the records manager and the admin assistant under the administrative lieutenant rather than having them report directly to the chief? That way, the chief has 2 lieutenants that house everyone else. It seems a little bit strange that non-directors, you know what I mean? Like non-secondary level people are reporting directly to the chief. And since that person's administrative, it makes sense that the administrative assistant and the records manager would report to her or him. So I think that's all I have for PD right now. Really great job. I know it's a little bit complex, but I think that this structure makes sense for us, and I appreciate the care and the thought that you put into it.
Thank you so much. And my concerns were pretty much what you just stated, Scott. Why would we not have the civilians, part of the administration, go to the report under to the administrative lieutenant, with the chief being oversight over everybody, as opposed to those folks directly reporting to the chief? That's one. On the top heavy piece in terms of police department, I want to talk about the chart as a whole when it comes up, but unlike Brian, I'm going to say this out very loud and clear. Mount Rainier's administrative departments, be they whichever unit you choose, is extremely top heavy in management, and they are extremely high in salaries. And that's a problem for the city, and it's going to come back and bite us. Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, I'm sorry. And my last one is, I am directly in support of a director of code compliance. I think that, may I?
Oh, sorry.
Well, don't we have the code compliance under police department? Isn't that where it's located? Well, that's what I'm talking about. But I would move it and put it as a separate department because it is and should be. I'm not exactly sure I see the connection to the police department. I know they do a very different function. And if my lieutenant is not going to go out there in the field and be able to do code compliance, then they should not be over code compliance because that code department is too small as it is. And the code compliance director should be able to go out in the field and do code compliance since we only have those few people there. And the code compliance is as large, if not larger, than some of the areas that the police department is handling. They have 3 very huge apartment complexes. They also have several mini ones. And we've complained, and residents are complaining constantly about issues in those apartments. And we need staff that can do that, not just be pulled in so many ways they can't. So I am totally recommending a director of compliance, code compliance, and I'm recommending that it comes out from underneath the police department.
Mayor, could I chime in?
Mayor, I had my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see. Listen, I cannot see you all. You're not on the screen. And in addition, I'm seeing black screens and I'm not seeing people, so I don't see anything. So unless folks want to stay on so I can see, I see Scott when he pops up. So help me see folks and I'll recognize you. I apologize, Luke.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, 2 things. The comment about why doesn't administrative staff all be under the administrative lieutenant? From my perspective, I think we're getting caught up in nomenclature. Every department that I see in my job, both below me and above me, they all have program areas, right? So you have so in this case, the chief of police has 2 program areas he's managing: admin lieutenant, patrol lieutenant. Well, every executive where I am also has like admin support, either an executive assistant and a program manager directly reporting to them also. So this doesn't look odd to me that the chief of police would have direct reports who are admin-like, because that's every executive I know in my organization has that similar structure too. So that's very normal. It would also, if we put a records manager is doing like police work. So having that records manager report to an admin lieutenant who's doing like code work doesn't make sense to me. And the chief of police you're going to want that person to have an admin assistant because they've got a lot of work on their table. They're at executive level, and you're going to want that person to have somebody admin support that they directly supervise. The administrative lieutenant also, you don't want them to have to supervise records management, which is like not in their program area, because they're going to be supporting a huge work area, like Mayor Miles said, which is code compliance. Like that's a huge work stream for the city. So I wouldn't put records manager who doesn't do code stuff to the side, that they're doing like police stuff. And I'd want the chief to have their own admin assistant reporting to them. The admin lieutenant position, that's where I'm like Scott. I'm a little bit back and forth here because I kind of want code to have its own director, but at the same time, if Chief Alston's saying to me he can get a code compliance director and police support out of this one admin lieutenant position, like that to me is nice. If you think you can flex that much capacity into one person, great. But I need to know if that's real or not. I don't want us to be pretending that an admin lieutenant can oversee code compliance and do some police work. You know, I don't know. And I think to Scott and Brian's point, it would look a little top heavy if you make an admin lieutenant a director of code and you have that position there. But I also don't agree on our salaries being too high. I think in the DMV, we're really competing hard for talent that has a lot of options here in government work. So I just don't agree with that statement. But I don't want to be top heavy. But to the extent we do have good directors, I'm fine paying them competitive salaries. So that's where I am there.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna go to Lieutenant Alston, and then I'm gonna certainly respond to you, Luke. Chief Alston, please forgive me.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I want to be clear about.
And could you all please turn your cameras on? I mean, it's a
Clearly.
public meeting. It is not the telephone meeting. That's why we're doing Zoom. So if you all would turn your cameras on, let the public see who we are and who's
Sure, Mayor.
speaking. Thank you.
Clearly, when I got here 2 years ago, we had a code compliance or code enforcement department. We elected to rename it code compliance. Slotted for a director. The previous city manager asked at some point that I stand in temporarily as the lead in code. Because of the many varied duties in code compliance, I can truly say it needs its own director. It needs to be separated as its own independent department as it was in FY18 and FY19. And clearly, the administrative lieutenant attempting to do all those varied duties and all the duties that have been put on hold because of the pandemic. It's a lot to do, and I can't tell you that we would be able to find someone who would be able to, as I've attempted to do, to have dual duties of policing, police administration, and code. It's a lot to ask for. So when we say that we're top heavy, I'm asking that we go back to our organizational charts from FY 18 and 19 and look at what we had there, where you had your own code director. I think we slashed that code budget over the past year or so by approximately 50% or so. We looked at doing away with that code director's position and bringing on more boots on the ground as far as the areas of inspector. So one thing that Latasha said, I know we can't make our budget around automated speed money, but some of these positions within the police department, when it comes to approving citations and overseeing that program, that's the cost of the automated speed camera program. So it actually doesn't come from the revenues, it comes from the cost of implementation of that program. So those are some of the things we can look at to supplement our funding for police staff, police officers. This administrative lieutenant is expected to be out on patrol as well. The administrative staff. So I understand what Luke was saying, but clearly in a new arrangement and organizational setting, I would have the records manager and the administrative assistant be direct reports to the administrative lieutenant, and oversee the administrative lieutenant and the patrol lieutenant. And I think that would be an effective way to manage our police department. We can continue our community-oriented policing with each patrol and administration speaking and being out in the community together. So I think we could, have a great picture moving forward.
Thank you so much, and we're on the same page. And in my response to Luke, that I just was dying to say, I love comparing Mount Rainier to the greater DMV. We have a $6 million to $7 million budget, and many of the places we are comparing, especially the federal government that many of us do work for, they can afford any salaries they put out there. This city cannot. And if we don't agree about the high cost of it, as Brian said earlier, it will no longer be my administration to worry over. But I certainly think as a resident of this city, I will continue to look at how we allocate funding for salaries and how we allocate funding for services. I think this city is allocating its funding, or should be allocating its funding, based on the needs of its residents, not on competition with salaries within the entire metropolitan area. But I would compare us to other municipalities and their salaries. And yes, people do want to work for municipal governments.
Mayor, I think we all.
I still want us to keep that in mind as consideration.
Mayor, I think we all have our hands up. I don't think you can see us though, just so you know.
I can't see anybody. And so unless we can configure it so I can, may I do this? May I ask each of you, when you are asking to speak, to please say your name, so I'll know you're there, and I'll try to go in the order that you all see hands up, if you don't mind. So
Brian wants
who's
to
hands
speak.
up? Brian, you have the floor.
So I'm like Scott, I keep going back and forth on, but I didn't realize that we could use speed camera money to pay outside the police department. So that's changed my calculation. So now, this moment, I'm with Chief Alston. I think we should have a code, and some of the rest of you have a code director, separate department. But we're also going to need to keep that, like Selena said, we need to keep that administrative lieutenant to take care of the speed camera approvals and have the records manager and admin report to that individual.
Yeah.
But my question is, how do we, the speed camera money, how do we know that that's being used to pay salaries? I know it's in a pot. It's in a pot of money.
No, it can't be used to pay salaries. It only can be used to pay the time. So let me give an example. The administrative lieutenant, let's say he comes in on a Saturday to go through all of the speed camera tickets, right, to approve them. Him being here today is what it can pay for, the time that he's using to approve or deny the tickets. So it's a portion of his salary. So it's saying he has to log, I spent 8 hours, or I spent 4 hours, or I spent 2 hours doing tickets. Those 2 hours are billable to the speed camera money, not his entire salary.
All right, so I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that we could pay the code compliance director's salary out of.
No.
Right, so,
You cannot. No. So that's why I said the administrative lieutenant portion of his duties would be speed camera. So that portion would be paid for by that. That's actually a separate line on the check.
But may I just kind of clarify, and I don't know how people do business or work today. I've been out of that market now for a minute. In my world, we did timesheets. And on your timesheet, you were asked or required to denote what you spent your time doing and how much. And then you turned in for that. If we did it with that kind of a function, Brian, any time spent on any safety issue in the city would be billable or chargeable to the speed camera money. So if someone was out, let's say the chief, if the chief was actually out there doing a safety survey on the potholes in the city, it's billable. If by the same token, code compliance was given that job to go out there and look at all the potholes and declare them safety issues. In fact, I sent one in this morning or yesterday. There's a sidewalk issue in front of Penny Royal Cafe. It's a trip hazard. And so if code went out there and they determined it was a trip hazard, a safety hazard, it would be can be billable to speed camera. So it depends on how we record the data and then how we take it from the appropriate budget. Somebody else's hand was up, Scott, you were telling me, because I certainly don't see any hands up. I don't see people.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having the floor one last time on this topic, if that's all right. And then just so you know, Mayor, I think I might have seen Selena pop out and back in, so I don't know if she was trying to get the floor or not. But just real quickly, how to say this? Maybe some tough love for the staff. I was a little surprised to hear Mr. Alston say that he thinks we should have a code compliance director, because it doesn't sound like, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like our police chief and whoever put the budget together were on the same page, or they just disagreed and we didn't know that. Because again, like I started out my comment saying, like, I want to support what the staff wants. I trust their expertise over my opinion, but it sounds like what the staff wants, at least in terms of the police department, is for there to be a code director. So I just think I'm a little bit miffed that we are where we are right now, that we're having this conversation now. It doesn't sound like that happened in an effective way among the staff themselves. I could be wrong about that. So like I said, a little bit of tough love. I'm definitely open to doing it. It just is going to change our budget a little bit. And going back to my position on this a year ago, if I had to pick, and I'm not saying that this is a choice in front of us, but if I had to pick between having a director and having a third inspector, I would pick the third inspector. But to the point that a couple of other people have made, I think Luke and Selena both made this point. One of the positives of having a code director is that that's another inspector for us, essentially. Whereas an administrative lieutenant, if they're also doing police work, is not a code inspector for us. And, you know, I've been complaining about and harping about the apartments not being inspected for 2 years. And so I would really like to see that done in the next, you know, year or two. So I think I'll leave my comments there for now. I'm just confused at how we got to this point, because I just heard the acting police chief say that he wants us to have a code director, which is news to me. Maybe that just means I need to have more conversations with him. But yeah, that's all I have for now. I haven't made up my mind personally on where we are here, but I'm inclined to listen to what staff is telling us, including our acting police chief.
All right, thank you. Whose hand is up? I don't see or hear any. Would you like to take it back, Latasha? Well,
I would.
let me do one thing before we do that. What we have in front of us is a combination of staff having had the same discussion. And I also believe very strongly that they were in agreement with where we are. I also think that some of the discussion we've had may have influenced decisions in terms of where things ought to be. And so it's not that they were in agreement, Scott. I think they are now hearing where mayor and council are or would like to be, and thinking through this new process with the other voices might have led to a change in how this chart will end up looking. So before we leave, and that's why we're having a work session, is to make sure that we are as close to the best we can get for the city as we can get. And I appreciate the time all of you are putting in on that. So with that said, let me go back to Latasha. Get us through this chart, because I don't plan to spend the day with you. I do have every intention of leaving.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
All right. So the notes have been made about the police department. And maybe I should put on here propose, because I think that everyone comes in here thinking that this is solid, that this is it.
It's a proposed chart.
It's a propose is up for changes. This is what I'm saying. Hey, this is how I made the budget work. This is the way it worked to get the numbers right. You understand what I'm saying? So propose. But also, Mayor, I have to chime in on this. We're not top heavy anymore on salaries.
Okay.
Let's be very clear. There's only one position that is top heavy.
Okay.
The rest are in line.
you.
We are no longer top heavy on salaries.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes. Okay. So let's go to the last section. So we have the mayor, the residents, the mayor, council, city manager. Direct report to the city manager, of course, is the city clerk and the grant writer. And the reason why I put the grant writer under there is because one of the things that we have to understand is the grant writer writes grants for the entire city, not just for one department. Before I got here, each department was going after their own grant and trying to do their own thing. And so in bringing in a grant writer, the concept was, no, this person goes after grants for the whole city. So they have to have, they should be managed under the city manager, because the city manager can help them prioritize, you know, to make sure, hey, did you get this one for, we're going to go after this one for police, this for public works, this for this building or what have you. So that's why I put that person under the city manager, and that person is part-time. We also have, so we had, in the last budget, we had a director of human resources. The budget prior to that, it was director of human resources and admin services. I have changed that name to director of human resources and community services, because that person will do HR and all things community related, not admin. I don't know what the administrative services thing, I don't know what that is. So we have the communications coordinator under that person, MRTV, the admin assistant, and a social services coordinator. And so again, all of those positions are community-based positions. The communications coordinator, that's, you know, who does our newsletter, the programs through the city, all of that great stuff. You know what MRTV does, we know what Jared does, community television, right? The admin assistant for City Hall, one of the things that I would like is for that position to be more than just sitting there answering phones and ordering supplies. It needs to be a little bit more involved in terms of being able to assist with community events, being able to assist with, you know, if the social services coordinator has something that needs to be followed up on, what have you, that's admin like, she can do that. So I believe in cross training, and I don't feel like we were doing that before. The social services coordinator, yes, I moved that person out of the police department. Thanks, Scott, for picking that up. And I did that because one of the things that I've heard time and time again is nobody wants to come to the police department because for whatever reason, it's not my business. You know, I may not want to go because I may not be here with the proper documentation. You know, I may not want to go because I may have a record in, I don't want that to come up. Whatever, it doesn't matter, but I need help. So with that being said, my thought is, you know, we're in the process of purchasing a building. That person would move to either City Hall or one of our other locations, and that's where that person would be housed. Somewhere where people feel comfortable coming, somewhere where people can truly get the assistance that they need. So I wanted to kind of make that position more bubbly and friendly, so to speak. So that's why I moved it under Human Resources and Community Services. But I also felt like, you know, it should be under there because we have some staff members who might need some services from that person. And I don't want them to feel like they can't reach out for those needs. So that's where I am with this. And the social services coordinator is part-time as well. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? Let me start with Selena first this time, then I'll go to Luke, then I'll go to Brian, then to Scott. That way everybody gets the floor.
Yeah, this is Selena. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the second part of it. Yeah, there was actually, just to clarify, there was actually cross training happening prior. This is the reason why our current administrative assistant has had work with both econ and also City Hall, and also when it comes to communication. And I definitely know who the person is. And I think this is definitely will showcase what is already being done, I guess I would like to put it. So I like this combination together.
Luke? Luke, can you hear me? Did Luke get booted off or something? All right, let's go to Scott. I'll come back to Luke.
Thought I was next.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll go to Brian. Forgive me, I mean.
That's cool. I think our human resource position is open at the moment, correct? Latasha? I thought we had an opening.
No.
Well, who is it?
Randy Barclay.
Oh, I didn't know that name. I know we had somebody and then they left, and I thought we hadn't filled it.
No, we filled it.
Oh, all right. Well, I have a comment about it, but not in public. So, okay.
Thank you. That takes us to Scott. Luke, I'm going to come back to you. You got lost somewhere.
Latasha, thanks. Just overall, thanks for your work on the organizational chart. Everything that's like to the right of police chief. I mean, I like the whole thing, but everything that's to the right of police chief, that basically the people in City Hall, this layout makes sense to me, and it makes the most sense that it's ever made. The way that you have the line going to the director of human resources. But anyway, I love it. I really like it a lot. And thank you for your comments about cross training. One of the things that I envision for our City Hall is that if somebody comes off the street, whether it's me or a bus driver using the bathroom or just a resident of our city, that any person who's in the City Hall can help them. And I know that that's one of the things that you're working toward, and that's reflected here in the chart. And I'm not saying that people who work oh, I didn't realize my camera was off, y'all. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm eating breakfast. I'm in Central Time, so I'm just now eating breakfast. It's only 9:15 for me. But yeah, I'll stop talking. Overall, I love the chart, Latasha. Thank you so much for the work that you and the staff have done putting it together. It looks good.
All right, let me go back to Luke.
I think we're good. I think it's time to probably move into each department, and we can probably continue these conversations ad nauseum when we get to each department. But thank you,
Well, I'll
Sam, for
tell
putting
you,
this all together.
thank you. Then I'll tell you the one thing I find not good with the chart, and everybody else is saying how great it is. So forgive me for being the oddball out. For any organizational chart of Mount Rainier or any other business, there is the mayor and council, who is over everybody. And then it should have the city manager under the mayor and council. And then everything else should flow from that. So if I'm missing it because I can't see, forgive me. If I'm not missing it because it's not there, please correct the chart to have those two pieces added. They are in every single organizational chart I've ever seen, because it isn't just the staff. Everybody falls under the mayor and council, who is elected by the people. And the city manager, because of our form of government, should fall directly under the mayor and council, with everything else branching out from her. And I did see your hand that time, Selena. Something happened to my screen.
So we are there, but I think the reason why it's hard for us to see, because we're kind of like in a little corner and top, so it's a
You're
little
not
bit
in the
weird.
corner.
Usually in the center. We're usually center, so yeah, I would like that change as well.
Mayor and council should not be off center. They are at the top of the chart. And since our form of government is what it is, the city manager should be directly under her, with prongs going everywhere else. Anyhow you want to do it. So I would like to see a corrected chart. Latasha.
This is Scott. Just a quick thing, Mayor. What you described is how the chart is. It's just not positioned in the center. But
I
what you
can't say,
described is,
as I said earlier, I can't see it. And if I
yeah, no
can't see it,
problem.
it doesn't exist to me.
No problem. That's why I'm letting you know. It is there. The way you
Okay.
described it is exactly how it is. But it also has the residents above us, which I think is a
And
nice
that's
touch.
exactly right. That is absolutely correct.
One comment that I forgot to make, and we can get to this later too, Latasha and colleagues, I would love for us to find a way to make the social services coordinator full-time if we can do that. So I just wanted to say that now.
Thank you so much. Brian?
So did we give final direction to staff on whether code compliance is going to have its own separate director? Maybe I got lost in the discussion, but I don't know.
We did not.
Maybe we should.
That's a
Can we
great
go through the
idea.
budget first?
I was waiting on that because I heard you say that the way you have it laid out, you made the numbers work for the money.
Yes.
And so we are going to change that. Let's see how the number work for our changes. Can we all wait and come back to this as our final piece? Latasha, you have the floor for the budget.
All right. Thank you. John, can we go to the revenues, please?
Mayor, I saw someone's hand. I don't know if they want to chime in or not.
Are there folks out there in the audience that would like to chime in?
I think it was me. No, just to go back to the question that was put aside when it came to the part-time positions, you told me to hold on until the full chart was reviewed.
I can hardly hear you. Say it again, please.
I said you asked for me to wait when it came to identifying the part-time positions until the full chart was reviewed.
Okay.
That's your answer it then, so I definitely want.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you. I did. You have the floor.
So I was going to say, Latasha, am I clear then saying the grant writer and the social service coordinator are the only two half-time positions?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for remembering to come back. All right, Latasha.
All right. So our revenues, the bottom line for revenues is 7.3 million. So $7,344,643 to be exact. That is a 1% decrease from last year, even with adding in those new positions. That is a decrease from where we were last year. So for tax revenue, we estimate about 5.1 million. I'm not going to go through each and every line out, because I know you guys have the budget, so I'll just do the summaries, and then you can tell me what numbers you have questions on. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. So for tax revenues, we estimate about 5.1 million, about a 2% increase. For total licenses and permits, we estimate about 713,000, which is a 1% decrease from last year. For intergovernment revenue, we estimate about 350,000, which is a 2% decrease. Total charges for services, it's the same, 24,500. Fines and forfeitures, 723,000, which is a 200. I don't know if that's right. It says 262% increase. And the reason why that number is so much higher is because the projected speed fund revenue. Prior to this year, we didn't have active speed cameras. Total miscellaneous revenues, we have a decrease by 18%, which is 69,000. And then for grants, we have 281,000. So also something that I don't believe was in previous budgets was grants did not have their own separate section. It's very important that you identify grants in your budget. So we made sure that each grant that we know of that we have has a number, a line number, and they fall under their particular section. So that is where we are for revenues. I will be quiet
Questions,
now.
comments on revenues, council? Brian, I think I see your hand. I'm not sure.
Yes, ma'am. So line item for vacant building fees, 4203. I'm just a little nervous about that number because I think I could be wrong, but I think we've reduced the number of vacant buildings. I mean, the Singer building block and a lot of things are no longer vacant. So are we sure? I mean, the number, it seems like, I can't remember. I think it's pretty close to what it was before, yet we have fewer vacant buildings. So maybe staff could let us know how many vacant buildings actually still exist as opposed to 2 years ago, maybe, or even last year. I'm just concerned about that a little. It probably isn't going to go down that much if we do reduce it. But
We have
I
that.
just don't think.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Brian. We have it at 10,000.
Yeah.
Which is a very modest number.
It wasn't. What was it last year? I can't read it.
Last year it was at 10,000.
Or what? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It can't be the same as it was last year because we eliminated a whole bunch of. Well, just can we look into that to be sure?
Yeah, we can.
The other one I'm a little worried about is the speed camera. Since we seem to be relying on that for some things, that's 4,506.
Mm-hmm.
Where did we come up with $500,000? Where did that number come from?
So to date, from August to now, we've brought in, and if I'm not mistaken, almost, Chief, can you help me with this? We brought in about almost 400,000.
Yes, we have.
From August to now.
Currently, we billed almost $900,000 to motorists from August 3rd to date. The speed vendor has collected clearly over 370,000 and actually has been put in our account. Wired to us, I believe to date is approximately 159,000.
But over time, as motorists become familiar with the speed camera, will that number go down, or what's your experience with that?
No, you were right. So what my thought process was, it's funny because Ray and I had the same discussion because Ray said the same thing when I put that number in. So what my thought process was, as we start to open back up and more people begin to travel, we're going to see an influx. But so for next year, I would suggest you bring that number down next year. But because I know we're about to open, which means the summer is coming, more people are going to be traveling. So when you get into your 2022 budget, you should see an increase in your number, especially if while we were closed from August to now, you brought in that much. I'm thinking when we really open, we'll bring in more. But I would say for 23, and this is for Luke and Selena and Scott, I wouldn't do it at $500,000. I would not for 23.
That makes sense.
They will fall off.
Yeah, I know we had one at Queens Chapel. We had one at Queens Chapel Road, and the revenue got so low they took it out because it wasn't making any money anymore. Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. You can change it if you want, but that was just my thought. I was like, hey, when the world opens up, more people are going to be moving.
Okay.
In that case, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Brian, you still have it.
Yeah, the line item 4,600, interest on investments. I can't read it again. I looked at this earlier. It looked like the actuals are low. So is that just because it hasn't come in this year, or 4,600? Can't make it bigger. No.
Latasha, please try to make it a little bit bigger. I can't see it at all, so I just
Don, can
stopped
you increase
trying.
the size, please?
I mean, I just stopped trying because I can't see the numbers or anything else.
John, do you know how to do it?
Actually, I guess I can do it myself. It looks like I can make it bigger. Okay. I just make my screen bigger. That's all. Okay. Yeah. It's, the actuals are only like, you've got it $40,000 for interest on investments, line 4,600. And yet the actuals are only like $1,700. But the year before that, it was 46,000. I don't understand that number where it's going up and down like that. I guess maybe at the end of the fiscal year, it goes up significantly.
Mr. Rawlins, can you chime in on that one? Because I took the number based off of past trends. I don't know if that's something that comes in at the end.
No, I mean, usually in a quarter, but the interest rates are a little bit low. If you recall, during this pandemic period of time,
Right, that's right.
interest rates, and I talked to the banks, and basically that's why people are now active in terms of buying homes because of this
The
rates.
interest rate and the target.
So that has impacted on the other side. It may pick up as it's beginning slowly going up, but you're not doing good with interest rates in the banks right now.
So you're okay with the 40,000 number?
Well,
Lower it. You can say no. You can say no, Mr. Rawlins. It's okay.
I to be on the conservative side, yeah, I would.
What's a good number for you, Brian? Are we at 10?
I'm relying on you all to tell me. I saw the discrepancy, and that's why I was concerned about it.
Mr. Rawlins, are we at 10?
Yeah, let's make it 10.
Okay, I've made that change.
Can I am I allowed to add something?
Yeah.
You have the floor.
Line 4303, state police aid.
Mm-hmm.
I want to change that. I received from M&L puts out a newsletter on some advices that comes from other agencies around this time of year, and only because we're doing this budget process earlier than I think we've done in the past. But they have the estimate for state police aid at 98,122,000. Yeah, so it's only a decrease of $1,800, but that's what the state police aid is estimated at now. We have it at 100. So if it's agreeable to just change it from 100,000 to 98,122.
I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Mr. Rawlings, what was the decrease again? Can you give me the decrease figure?
It's 1,878, $1,878.
Gotcha.
Okay, I have a couple more, and then I'll be quiet. The mitigation fees, I don't have the line item. I'm sorry, I forgot to write that down. In the explanations of the line items, it refers to it as impervious fees. So we're using two different terms. We've had this problem before. I would call it mitigation / impervious surface or something, so that you've got that both, because in the code it's referred to both those ways. So we don't have mitigation in the explanation. Okay. Okay. So then on to, yeah, one last one. The under your grants, the bottom, the civic center bond money is not there. I don't even know if there's any left. I think you all were looking at that.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't included, because I don't want to include something that I'm not sure we have or not.
Okay, but
it will be included.
So yeah, I'm gonna throw this out there real quick, and then I know it's off topic, but later on in the budget, there's nothing for matching that bond, and we have to do that. So I know we allocated money in the past to match, but I don't know that we ever spent it. So we're just gonna have to keep that in mind.
Noted.
I'm done.
But I just want to make sure you're clear, Latasha, on what he's asking. We received 150,000 or 250,000, and we don't know if it's all been spent yet.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just want to make sure.
he's myself, Brian, and Liz have had conversations about it. Liz is looking to see. We know that we've spent some because we also had the library bond bill too that hadn't been spent.
Okay.
So we're trying to
all of them should have been spent because you have a time limit to spend it and draw down.
Yes.
And if you have not spent it and drawn it down, we need to do it ASAP, ask for an extension, get the money because
we're on it. We've already submitted receipts and we are on it.
Okay.
We're on it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let me go to who I see no hands. Any questions? Any other questions on the items in that particular revenue budget?
Mayor,
Scott, I have one.
Selena, wherever you are, I'll go with Selena, then I'll come to Scott.
Yeah, I was gonna say under grants, there is.
Selena, I can't see you either. So there you are.
I'm here. Sorry, I put I'm using the computer and the phone so I could see the screen bigger. I'm having the same issue you guys are having, not seeing it. So I'm in two functions. So for the COPS grant, we need to add a number, a line item to it. It has none at this point. I did notice the library was not there. And the other thing is that can we add a number for the, right now I see the COVID-19 relief Prince George's County one. Can we add one for the American Relief Fund? So that way there's a location where that funding will be placed once we receive it.
I think you would, and this is my humble opinion, for that COVID relief funds, because they're saying that'll come, they're projecting it'll come in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest a budget amendment.
So, but I will ask for it to have a line item already, so that way there's a place for it to put it.
But this is the thing, okay.
Even if it's zero at this point, you know, you see how you have like a few of them that are zero out, just put it there so that way we're ahead of the curve, and just put zero at this point so that when we do the budget amendment, we could have a home already for it.
But may I say it differently? And Latasha, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I did have a long conversation with Senator Chris Van Hollen. The money is definitely coming. This is a budget. A budget is anticipated revenue. And if we are anticipating monies from there, it should be in that budget. It's not, we don't know if any of this stuff is going to happen. And I don't think we need to do a budget amendment. We may have to do a budget amendment to adjust what we put in there. But from Chris Van Hollen, over whatever period that relief fund is going to be, the city of Mount Rainier is definitely going to get $6 million. And so it's going to be broken up in pieces. And I would strongly recommend that we divide it over, over 3 years or something. So, and put that amount of money in there so that the coming council will at least have an idea that is there and know what they're working with, than rather having to struggle in a hurry to amend it, to put it in there for something they're going to do. So I would agree that let's put a line item in, and if for nothing else, if you're going to get 6 million, at least put $1 million in there to hold the line item. And if you get more than that, then make a budget amendment to do the adjustment. That's a recommendation. And
where would you like the expense?
Probably if I put the revenue in, then I would definitely house the expense under some title that would be a community relief fund or whatever you want to call it, because you can use it for rental. You can use it for there are all kind of COVID, and maybe COVID is the line item. You know, maybe you're going to put it in there, relief fund / COVID funding, and then your expense would come out of the other side, COVID, relief COVID expenditures. A recommendation, a suggestion.
Noted.
All right, thank you. And I'm on the same page. All right. Anything else under revenue?
Yes.
All right, Scott, I think I was supposed to come to you.
That's
but
okay.
you keep everybody disappears.
I'm not sure why.
I don't either. It's probably my computer.
Well, if I'm contributing to it, I have been turning off my camera periodically so I can blow my nose because my sinuses are wacky this morning.
That's good, so I can see you do it. I want to see you. I want to see your face.
I have a couple times. I forgot to turn it off. For anybody who's watching on Facebook, sorry about that.
Excuse me.
Brian, really good questions because you asked a couple of questions that I had. So Latasha or Director Rollins, can you get back to me either now or offline about line item 4211, church occupancy licenses? Because I've never noticed that in the budget prior to this morning, and I'm just not sure what it is. And then also, Mayor, just so you know, I think Luke was asking for the floor, and then there's also in the chat a question from the public about speed cameras.
Thank you
That was
so
all I
much.
had for now. No
all
problem.
right, then let me go to Luke, and
Thank you,
then
Mayor.
tell me how to get to this chat. I think I'm there, and I'll see what the question is while he's speaking.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
One of the allowable expenses for COVID relief is necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. And, you know, Senator Cardin's office has pegged Mount Rainier with $6.7 million in relief fund. You could make a huge investment in our stormwater management infrastructure, which that's a lot of money. Brian wants to know how to spend it. You can spend that money on stormwater management infrastructure because one of those bioretention cells that folks seem to like, maintenance seems to be going well with how we've contracted out maintenance. I know that was a big concern early on, but it's going, you know, not perfect, but it's going well. They seem to be getting maintained every spring and fall. I think it's, like $25,000 to $50,000 a pop for each one of those. We could install a heck of a lot more of those around the city, and we could incorporate the what was in the tool design study where you have curb bump outs incorporated with bioretention. So we could be getting two birds with one stone here. We could be installing some of those traffic calming devices that incorporate stormwater management. So we're getting a lot more bang for our buck for this money. So just want us to think about that. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to invest in something that is usually very costly, which is why we've only gone after grant money for it. We haven't ever incorporated it into our budget because it's so expensive. And here's this opportunity to take a big chunk of that change and make a much needed investment in stormwater management. Flooding is going to continue to be an issue. We're going to continue to see more rain events like we saw this last year. And so I just would like my colleagues to think about that. Thank you.
And on that note, Luke, just to kind of put a reminder out, because Brian and I are going to be walking away, the Chesapeake Bay Trust Fund will match whatever money you have to put out there to help do just that. And if you have that line item in that budget under that relief money and they can see it, you have a much better chance of getting their match to put in some of those bioretention cells. The very park that we did over at Queenstown was done with Chesapeake Bay money. And so, point well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands I'm missing? I do see one question here before I release the floor again. Charnette Robinson, I believe, on Facebook, asked the question of, are there plans for any additional speed cameras near schools? And I guess Chief Austin would need to answer that in terms of having looked at where speed cameras can go and the requirements that go with that. Chief, are you
Yes, ma'am,
still
I can
there?
take that. Currently, we have no plans for additional speed cameras at this. So we'll Rhode Island Avenue, near 37th is our current placement in both directions. So we'll look and see what's going on elsewhere. I know, as Brian mentioned before, Queens Chapel, they were there previously, and they're doing highway work on Route 500 there. So we don't have any plans to do any studies there until after that highway work is done. So that gives you an update on that.
Well, the second part of it is that we also had a speed camera on Arundel Road. And I remember it was quite a money thing. We kind of caught people doing 80, 75 miles an hour. And so the camera did work for a while, and then the funds went down because they started getting the tickets. There's a lot of work still going on Arundel, and will continue for the next year as the levee work move forward. But I would certainly want you to keep that in mind as we start looking at installing other speed cameras. Arundel should not be left out that cycle.
Thank you, Mayor. And there's some legislation going along now in the state that will hopefully allow Prince George's County to be in line with Montgomery County, where
Yes.
we're allowed to post what they call neighborhood speed zones, safe zones.
Yes. Yes.
And that is not relative to schools at all, because currently the law says only for school zones and work zones. So
Yes.
we'll keep following that as well, because clearly the nature of this program is to change the behavior of drivers, not a revenue generator, but to change the behavior of drivers.
Thank you so very much. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions in the chat. If I'm missing, there was one that I believe Latasha had already answered and said which are the top heavy positions. And I believe her answer is, Mayor, there are no longer any top heavy positions. So I think that has been answered. Am I missing anything, Scott?
I think so.
All right, thank you so much. We're ready to move on, Latasha.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute, I see somebody's hand up. Is that Mr. Kamali's hand? You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Kamali. Mr. Kamali, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me right now?
We can now, thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I just want to let you know that in grants revenue, I got $196,000 in stormwater management from CBT that have not been used yet. So if you want to list it on the grant revenue for FY22, I do appreciate that.
Can you give that information to Mr. Rollins, please, so he can put it in?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And you're saying that entire amount will be in FY22?
Yes.
Okay.
I already sent the list of my grant, and that was one of the grants for FY22.
And
But I
just to
look
kind
forward
of,
to.
thank you. Just to go back to the grant issue, years back when Brian and I were on the council, different councils, we had a whole section on grants. And the funding was listed there, so we knew what part of our budget was grant that was going to be used. It wasn't all meshed and pushed in somewhere. So you might want to have a section that just lists grants that allow you to know where your grants are, the amount that the grants are bringing to the city in revenue, because residents don't see what we see. So you might want to consider going back to that, and you won't miss grants that are out there.
Thank you. All right, so John, we're ready for City Hall. I mean, not City Hall, I'm sorry, City Council. So not much changed here except a decrease by 9%. And let me see, we decreased conference and convention expenses. And that decrease was with the thought that I'm not sure how many people will be traveling this year. So that was that. But I mean, you can change it if you want. I just didn't think that many would travel because we're still kind of COVID.
Well,
So that's the only number that changed.
Let me just throw this out as a possible thought. If the prediction is correct that on May 1st, they're going to open up completely with the vaccines to any and everybody, with the projection of 3 out of 6 will be vaccinated, would you not see a possible reopening of the MML fall convention when people would actually travel, and therefore it might increase slightly? I'm all right leaving it like it is if we're thinking that's only Zoom meetings are going to happen, because then you would also look at the overall travel staff-wise. What do you
This is
think?
only for mayor and council. We did decrease some of the.
I understand that, but I was just saying overall.
I think that, I agree with you in that if everyone is vaccinated or gets vaccinated or what have you, and people will have these conferences, I guess what my reservation is, there's some people who are saying, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but I'm still not traveling until 2023.
Okay.
I being one of those people, right? It could be a conference tomorrow in Las Vegas. I'm fully vaccinated, but I'm not going.
But I am.
So, I don't know. I just put it in. I said, well, it's 5,000. It's 5 of them. It's 1,000 each. If, let's say, and this is something that can happen. If Selena decides she's not going to go in person, but let's say Luke and Scott want to go in person,
The money will be there.
Yeah, the money is there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on any parts of that budget?
This
Luke, I
Selena?
see your hand. And Selena, I heard you. Can't see you, but I saw Luke's. Luke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Luke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be going in person to the fall MML. I never attend the fall one anyways, because it's hard for me with work. It's a busy season for me. And so I will not be attending that one in person because of COVID and because I never attend the fall one. I think the summer one I always attend. So you can take me out of that calculation if we want to do that. And if we can get enough of council members to get out of that equation, then maybe we're fine with what Latasha has put down here. Thanks.
All right, Selena.
Yeah, I was going to say for the MML summer conference at this point, I have opened it up just for 2 representatives per city. And if not enough go, like they will open up for a 3rd person, but it is very limited as well, even though we have the vaccination. And as for the fall one, I will be going because it is part of the requirements of us being part of MML, that make sure that we get full advantage of everything we need to. I know not everybody goes, but I think even if a few of us go, we're able to bring all the resources they have back to the city.
And you must have it for Banner City. Okay. Anything else, Scott? Brian?
I
Is
just
there
mentioned that
anything
the election cost doesn't have a line item. A number. I don't know if that's just a typo.
Oh, yes. That's what I was going to say. I took out election because I was told there's not an election in 2022.
Right. But shouldn't there be a line item number there?
The number. Oh, yeah. Mr. Rollins, you're missing your account number. You're right, Brian.
Not a big deal, but anyway.
Okay.
All right. Can we move on?
Yes, we're ready to go. I think
Economic
we got the
development.
questions and the comments.
We're on to economic development because Mr. Hopkins has to go because today is his birthday.
Happy birthday to Mr. Ronald Hopkins. Woo, 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 woo. Thank you.
He's going to be mad at me for that.
Oh, I don't know why not. He's going to have a birthday anyway.
All right. So in this department, it increased by 5%. And the increases are salary, because that was the general 3% salary increase that we put in for everyone across the board. And that was it. And when you raise the salaries, the other stuff goes up too, the benefits. But
Yes.
that's the only change to this budget, is to salary and benefits. Everything else is the same, and the money is still there for the Main Street, for that Main Street designation that we're trying to get back. Mr. Hopkins, did you have anything you wanted to chime in? I think this budget is pretty.
Yes. So I just had a conversation earlier this week with Comptroller Peter Franchot, and he had mentioned that 1/3 of all Maryland residents are in a deep recession, that we've lost 138,000 jobs in the state of Maryland, and 30,000 businesses have closed their doors, right? So part of my initiative this program year is to have more workforce development workshops for our residents. I'm partnering with Employ Prince George's. So we're going to have a CNA training and a CDL training for our residents in the city, free of charge. So that's what I'm working on now. So that's my focus, to like at least get our residents to work and have skills to carry them to the future.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Not exactly sure where we would put it or where we would even consider putting it. But one of the things that is crossing my mind is our small businesses and how we are going to work toward helping to either keep them open them, help them get caught up, etc. And I do see some of the relief money, some other things out there working. But what do you see as the economic development person to help move those businesses forward or get them back on track?
So Liz and I are working with Economic Development Administration. There's some seed money available to actually assist the businesses. There are a lot of, I guess the trend now is providing incubator space. So we have a lot of at-home businesses, right? And a lot of them would like a location to come to where they can actually operate their businesses. In fact, our partnership with Gateway CDC, they've run out of space. So we have members coming in every day, and they're looking for space. So I know we may be purchasing a building shortly. Maybe that could be used for that as well. And that's additional revenue coming into the city. So that's some of the things that we're discussing in our partnership with Gateway CDC and myself.
There is a Tacoma model for businesses that have just a space where they have an office, a desk, and they run about 5 to 10 businesses out of it so that they don't have to stay at home. Might be something to look into. And they don't call them incubators. They actually are office spaces that are available that money can be made off of by the city with the business licenses, etc. But I'd like to see that kind of thought of as a program under economic development, even if I'm not here.
All right.
You're going to
Absolutely.
be here.
Thank you. Right. Anything else on economic development?
You're not going far. You live down the street.
Are we ready to go on to the next one?
Yes, we are. We're ready.
questions?
We're coming.
No questions, Mr.
With no
Hopkins. Have a
questions.
great day.
All right.
You may leave and have a great birthday party.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
birthday.
All right, thanks.
All right, we're off to administrative services or City Hall. I'm sorry, City Hall, John. Thank you. So for City Hall, that was the next one, wasn't it? No, I'm sorry, administrative services. Well, that is the same. City Hall Administrative Services. I'm sorry, it's named different on my sheet in front of me. John, scroll up. Which one is that? The 340. I want to make sure I have the right sheet in front of me. Okay, you're missing one. Is City Hall on there? A tab?
Yes, City Hall is there, and you
Okay.
have to.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Let's go to administrative services first. You're right. I just wanted to make sure. We can do administrative services first. Okay, so we have, for administrative services, we have, of course, our positions, which you saw on that chart, which had the city clerk, director of HR, MRTV grant writer, which is part-time, communications and community events coordinator, as well as the social services, which is part-time as well. So that overall line item increased. And the increases, of course, was with the salaries because you added, remember, you took the social services out of police
and you
added it to a different department. So that's going to increase that department. But the bottom line across the board is the same for that. So that's where your increase came for the most part. Everything else in that is the same, except there is a decrease under the other services. And those decreases are census expense. So it's a $2,000 because we've already spent that. That was in last year's budget. So that's the only decrease. So basically, it's the same. It's just you added a position under it. But all the other
council. I think I saw Selena hand go up.
Yeah, I see the winter event is a 0 and it's the only event that's been wiped out. We need to put money back in there. We didn't host it this year, mainly because we still were in the midst of pandemic, but doesn't mean it's going to be erased. It is going to be continued this year.
Other council?
Got it. It's added back in.
Luke.
Thank you.
Luke?
Thank you, Mayor. There's one thing for the green team. Their requested budget was, there it is. Their requested budget was $1,600 because there's a new cost for the Native Plant Network for signs. So there's a few $100 in there. So that would be a $600 increase for the green team to $1,600. The Halloween events, I don't know if $3,000 needs to be the amount there. It would be, I would be happy to take some of that money and give it to the winter event and maybe get the senior programming up from $500 to $1,000. I know when I did the senior programming for Joe's Movement Emporium, it cost me about $1,000 just for that one event. So $500 doesn't get you a lot for senior programming. So my recommendation would be to take, $1,000 or $2,000 from Halloween event, put it into senior programming to make that $1,000, and then give $1,000 to the winter event. But I'm interested to see if we spend that $3,000 for the Halloween event or what. I'm open to conversation there. Thanks.
Anyone else? Do I see your hand, Scott?
No, but I will take the floor briefly. I was sort of waiting. Sorry, I'm trying to look on my screen so that I don't have to make the city clerk scroll. Give me just a moment. Oh, I'm curious about line item 5105, the workers' compensation insurance expense went down 60%. So I'm just curious to know why. Not complaining about it though. I think this is not a conversation for today, but so that's the question I have, and then a comment. Under services and charges, we've got all these different events here, and then different line items, whether it's green team, community garden, bike co-op, etc. Looking forward to having some one-on-one conversations with some of you about these. I generally am not thrilled about spending a bunch of money on the events, although I know they are quite popular. So I sort of tend to be the odd man out on that, but I'm probably going to stick to my guns and say that I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on holidays that not everyone celebrates. But I'm definitely open to negotiate on some of those. But yeah, I would just love an answer to the question about what's going on with workers' comp insurance.
That would be a Mr. Rollins question. I don't touch those numbers. I'm sorry.
With the workers' compensation expense, basically, I budget based on, usually you use a percentage by department of individuals by their salaries. I can't tell you how it was done last year, but or previous, but it seems to me that it was kind of high for those departments with not as many individuals, and it was lower in the police department where you have a great amount of individuals. Plus, this includes claims, and we have a lot of claims pertaining to the police and the public works, but it's expected. Plus, the rate for premium is higher because they work on the outside versus those who work as the rest of the staff in the inside. So I found that previously the way it was budgeted wasn't in reality of what our Chesapeake does, how they come in and do the audit in terms of looking at our premiums and how they tend to charge by by individuals. So this budget I did over with workman comps in line of what they're doing, because what will happen is each year they will come out and they'll audit our payroll, and basically looking at that payroll, the premiums are lower for those that are working in the office versus those outside. And then there is the claims, and those claims get basically spread, but it's not fair that those claims goes to everybody. It should go more closely to where they're basically taking place. So I try to do it in a more realistic way in terms of that's why there's a change in this. but going forward, it'll be a little bit more accurate, because when I look at the actuals compared to it didn't make sense. Example, in the actuals, the police department would be under budget. And I didn't think that's accurate, where other departments were over and they didn't have as many personnel or claims as the police department.
And just a very quick comment on that. Your unemployment and workers' comp are based primarily on incident. How many incidents you have. If you have 50 incidents, you're going to go through the roof. And it could go down the next year because you had none. Kind of same thing with the health insurance, pretty much. Okay.
Mayor, this is Luke.
May I finish? And I'll be through. In terms of it, Scott, in terms of the events and programs that are out there, if you take all the money out the Halloween budget, for me nowadays, it won't matter because I will not be doing the Halloween blast party out of the city budget. I didn't hold it last year because of the pandemic. And since I will probably find other ways of funding it, as I did previous years before then, I'll strip that budget. It probably won't matter, and put the money in some other places. The second thing for me is that bike co-op is going to be completed by close of April in terms of the renovations from the Carpenter Union and the city partnership. And my recommendation to this budget would be that you at least put $2,000 in there for incidental. That will go with that bike co-op. It is one of your draws to the city. A lot of folks move here because of the bike co-op, the tool shed, the tree commission, and the green team. So I don't think you want to take that particular event, and it's not an event. It's actually a program in the city that need to be funded and need to be there. And I'm talking about the bike co-op.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Just to quickly respond to Director Rollins' answer to my question. Thank you for the explanation. I'm pretty sure it makes sense to me, but I wouldn't mind seeing a more detailed just analysis or report on how you arrived at the workers' comp numbers for each department, not just this one, because I understand that the premiums, the rates change dependent on how many incidents and claims that we submit. But just noting, the reason I'm a little bit, I don't even know if concerned or miffed is the right word, but seeing that reduction, it was only 2 years ago when the cost of this went up by 10 times. It was only $2,800 in FY 2019, and then in 2020 it was $28,000. So I'm just saying, if that could happen 2 years ago, is there a chance that our 3,000 becomes what is it? Is it 3,000? Is there a chance that we end up having a claim and then we're spending 30,000 instead of 3,000? Because it's happened before, just 2 years ago. So I understand, like, it's a different circumstance. We don't know if any claims will happen, but because it is possible, I'm just worried that number is a little bit low. That's all.
Scott, let me chime in real quick. I'm sorry. I would question those numbers, because my question would be, were those claims for that actual department? What Mr. Rollins is saying is he did the numbers based on department, not overall. And the individuals who were doing the budget at that time, they stuck a lot of numbers in places that they didn't belong. So I'm just curious if that was because all of those people in that department, like you said, are inside. Like, I don't believe that you have $30,000 in claims for admin. I seriously doubt that. I think those numbers were fudged.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to take up any more time with this, but I appreciate the additional explanation. Any other additional info you can give me /us so that I can review it and understand it better myself would be more than welcomed. But generally speaking, I trust y'all's judgment and how you arrived at the number. Thank you very much.
And for a minute, let me just say this. Luke, I need to step away from the camera, and I'd like to turn this meeting over to you to move forward.
Thank you, Mayor. And
I'm keeping the speaker on.
Yep, and I was going to say one thing. I had a question about equipment purchases at $10,000. We spent nothing this year. Spent $54,000 back in FY20. I think I remember there being a big expense here, but I'm forgetting what it was for. But the $10,000 for equipment this going into next year. What is that 10,000 for? And if we aren't sure, I would like to lower that to.
What line are you at?
It's the bottom. It is 5560 equipment purchases.
Okay.
So I understand there may be incidentals that folks might need. So, you know, if we could lower that to 2,000.
I would disagree.
Go ahead.
So the reason why is because we came into a situation where we had to buy new computer for, and I don't think it's in your actuals yet, because it's not in mine, and mine are up to February. We just had to buy a new computer for Aaron because we lost the computer. So let me say this, right now we don't have any reserve computers. So anyone who new comes in, we have to go buy a computer for.
Yeah.
If John computer breaks tomorrow, we don't have a extra, like a one on hand to give him. We have to go buy one. So I would disagree with that because, for instance, HR, MRTV, grant writer, and social services all have old computers. They have used computers old. The only two people in this department that have a brand new computer is John and well, I shouldn't say John, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use names. The city clerk and the communications. So I think that you're going to have to, it's inevitable. You're going to have to update their computers, but not only their computers, the HR person is going to need a new printer because they need to print in their office because they're printing confidential information.
Yeah.
The printer they have in there now is very old. We were trying to get it connected. So I would be hesitant on that because of, and I don't know what MRTV is going to need either. You have to take that in account as well. You know, he has a lot of equipment. We did do that major upgrade last year, I think it was last fiscal year, but you know, in case one of his systems breaks as you guys move back in, you're going to have to repair that.
Gotcha.
So that's where I'm
good. I'm good. As long as we have rationale, I'm good.
Yeah, it's, you know, and I can't speak for the person who comes after me, but, you know, I tell them to hold on to equipment for dear life until it's literally on its last leg. But, you know.
I'm sorry. What line item is it? Forgive me for interrupting.
It's Selena.
5560.
Thank you.
Okay. Selena, you have the floor.
Yeah, definitely agree with Latasha when it comes to equipment purchase. The only thing I will say, if it's MRTV, it is taken out of the cable money, if I'm not mistaken on that. But when it comes to the rest of the stuff, yeah, they're using third, fourth hand sometimes equipment, and they are working it to like the last bit of air on the equipment. A question for you, Latasha, Mr. Rowland, 5517 iNet service. I see a zero out until it gets to 13,500, and it says zero increase. I'm wondering what that is. Can you let me know? And
that's our share to that's our internet.
So did it went up, down, or
no? They never put in. The previous individuals did not put in the amount that we pay, our share of paying for iNet
for City Hall itself.
Correct.
Okay, and the other comment I would make when it comes to,
I think that's for the, hold on, Selena, real quick. I think that's for the city, correct, Mr. Rollins?
Yes, this is
iNet that's for the entire city. It's not divided by department.
right, but this is where it's a consortium for municipalities that we participate in. I already got an email that they will be sending our share contribution in March, so it should be coming in at any point. It's just that's why it hasn't been posted. It's about, or it's coming in. I can tell you that. So, and by the way, they also, the amount that we put in here, they also gave us what the budget will be for next year.
Okay, thank you for that. And when it came to the Halloween event, yeah, I will leave some money in there. I know it looks a little bit hard because it was two events in one, but the city should be able to still host their own events separately.
I did what Luke suggested. I have 1,000 there, and then I put Green Team 1,600, and what was the other one you said, Luke? Oh, the senior program 1,000.
Yeah, because that's the Halloween Halloween, spring, and winter are three of our biggest events that we have in the city. So that I know it might not seem important, but I think it's a way for the community to like get together, and we do our best to not tie it to per se a holiday.
All right, are we ready to go to the next one?
Anyone else have comments?
Can I just, Latasha, would it be, it would be, if we'll meet to, like, just a recap, we all remember on the same page, if that's okay with you?
No, we can recap together.
Okay.
I don't want to hold everybody's time.
Okay.
Because this could be a very, very long day.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I asked, right, if you remember, that's why I asked you, myself, and Safanda, each of us to track the changes so that we can come together and compare who captured what and who didn't.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So next is code compliance. All right. So for code compliance, it's an increase of 14%. And the increases come with the wages, of course, like I said, with the general increase that we're doing. There's also an increase in the benefits that goes back to where Mr. Rollins was talking about. Well, let me stop. No, the medical benefits have increased for that department. They almost doubled. So let me say this, what we have to understand. No, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, they've doubled. The decreases are in professional services. We decreased the professional services contract from 6,800 to 5,000. Employee training down to 2,000. Again, going with the concept of things may be virtual. And everything else is the same.
Great.
So we are ready to hear your changes in your.
I'm just going to start off and say this because I know folks are going to have questions about this. We can re-debate the question about whether we want a code director or don't want a code director, and I think we could spend a lot of time on this. My recommendation, if council is okay, is to first have staff figure out what a code director would cost in salary and benefits, and then have that information back to us when we can have that conversation on another day. I just don't want to get bogged down in that conversation since we've already had it. And I don't know if anybody has a clear answer on what they want yet. And I don't know that we'll be able to make an educated decision on what we want until we know the cost of a code director position. So I want to throw that out there for the council to consider. And if you guys have consensus on that front, we don't have to engage in a debate about a code director right now when we don't have all the information in front of us. So that's my recommendation. Does the council object to that and you guys just want to debate this now? And we can get into everything else with code. I realize we'll get into every other line item. You can question that. Just that one issue I don't want us to get bogged down on.
This is Scott. That what you just described works for me personally, Luke. Latasha, would you please add to that? And I should have brought this up in a previous section. Would you please add to that, figuring out what salary and benefits would cost for a full-time social services coordinator so that we have those numbers in front of us as well to talk about that at another time?
Thanks, Scott. Does Brian or Selena, do you have an objection to what I just said?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
So fine, but I want to make it clear that I do want a co-director.
Crystal clear. I think you and the mayor are on the same page there. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about every other line item besides the staffing?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Selena.
And it's about staffing. Latasha, Mr. Rowland, when you guys put the uniforms, vehicle, and stuff like that, that includes for potentially 2 inspectors. Is that correct?
For uniforms?
Yeah, for everything that's in here when it comes to staffing. That includes the potential new inspector, correct?
It's not, yes, it is for new. Yes, it's for any inspector. It's the whole shebang.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate Selena's last question because I'm confused. So I understand the flow chart, but does this sheet for code compliance also include the parking enforcement officer? Or is that under the police
No,
department?
no, he's under police.
Okay, so he's just under the, okay, got it.
Yeah, this is only for the 2 co-officers and the permit tech.
Thank you, I understand. Appreciate that.
Okay. Brian, do you have any comments?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm good. We can go to the next department. Thank you,
All
Latasha.
right, let's bounce back to City Hall. I'm trying to do it in the way we put it on the agenda. That's why I was a little confused earlier. Sorry about that. All right, so for City Hall, we have an actual decrease of 38%. And that goes back to when I made that comment earlier about your salaries for most have come down. This, of course, includes the director of finance, your city manager, your senior staff accountant. We added a new staff accountant position, the information systems, as well as your administrative assistant. So we decreased this budget even though we added a position to it. So your increases are in your total wages, of course, because you added a position. Your decreases are in benefits and services, as Mr. Rawlins pointed out. We see a decrease in the medical insurance and the workman's comp insurance. You have an increase in your materials and supplies. We increased the office supplies. If you guys remember, you cut it to $10,500. So we increased it up to $12,181. And I can tell you right now, and this is full transparency, why it's the $12,181. It was $10,000, but because I was short when it came to the budget by $2,181. So this is how I got it balanced. So that is being very honest and very transparent. I said, I know where I can get that. We'll put it right here. So that's why that number is like that. So feel free to cut it if you want, but that's just the number that's where I could get it balanced.
We know it's for a hammock in your office, Latasha. Don't lie. We know it's for a hammock.
Sweetheart, I'm gone in 30 days.
That's true. That's right. That's right. That's right.
I have no dog in this fight. Trust me. You see behind me, this is my new quarters.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, this is where my time will be spent. So that's where you see that increase in that department. So again, like I said, if you want to move that, you can. It's there because I needed the balance. You also will see an increase in your professional services. And that increase came in professional services computers. We have the contracts, that's where the printer contracts and all of those other contracts fall under the, what's that big machine? This postage machine and all of those different contracts are in there. And that also has the contract but your audit firm. Remember, you guys agreed to renew with them and they had increased their price. So that's where that increase comes at. So that number is actually really not a non-negotiable because those are contracts that you're locked into. The other increase for that area is your payroll expenses. And that is basically, the charge that it is for us to do payroll. And that increased from $30,000 to $45,000. I think they went up on the cost to do payroll. But that's standard because most companies go up every year. The other increases you have, let me stop. Now decrease, where we decreased at. Your other services and charges, we decreased association dues from $8,000 down to $7,000. And of course, the COVID-19 expense, that was $419,000. That's where we had stuck that at. So we decreased that because we don't have that grant any longer. And the other decrease comes in infrastructure and facilities. Telephone, we decreased that down to $25,000. As you know, since I've been here, I've streamlined or worked on getting rid of all of those numbers and phones and stuff that you guys just weren't using. So that's where we were able to save some money on that end, and everything else is pretty much the same.
Thank you.
So cut the budget, even though I added a position.
Nice work.
I'm a genius. No, I'm not.
If you were in the private sector, you'd get a nice little bonus for that. I know, right? Cost-cutting bonus. All right, any comments from council members?
I have a question about the percentage on 5597, your COVID-19 expenses. shouldn't that be 100% decrease? Because
Yeah, I don't see, it doesn't have a percentage next to it at all.
and because the total is 96%, but that doesn't add up with the percentages.
Yeah, it's not right. I wouldn't say that.
I'm good otherwise. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Scott, did I see your hand raised?
Yeah, this does not need to be answered right away, but Latasha, could you remind me how long we extended the contract with the auditors?
I think it's 3 years.
Okay, thanks.
Selena, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, no, thank you, Latasha, for putting the details into this and being transparent when it comes, just in case we need to get a little bit of more money for the different things that we're asking. We might have to come back to this line item right here, just for a little bit. But thank you so much for all the work, and definitely, yeah, the audit, I'm glad we locked it for 3 years. It's needed to have consistency to make sure that it gets us where we need to be. But yeah, I definitely agree. Finance needs a lot of help with all the grants we're getting, but as well with all the finances to keep them up to date. And if we want to be in the right side of the audits, this is what we're going to need. So thank you.
Thank you, Selena.
And also, I just want to note that you may have to, so in here is the city manager. I put in a number for a salary, but you may have to come back and readjust that because I don't know what you're going to negotiate.
Yeah,
I will tell you, I don't know if you want me to tell you out loud right now what I put in, or you want me to just text you or email. I don't know.
Let's talk about that because we're going to have a closed meeting on that anyway. So let's talk about it then.
You want me to talk about it right now?
No, when we have that closed meeting on the recruitment.
Okay.
I mean, Luke, I'm
Personnel.
sorry. I personally wouldn't mind hearing what number you put in there. I don't think there's any harm in the public knowing how you arrived at these numbers.
If we're going to be doing negotiations for a salary, I don't know if that's a great idea.
Yeah, because you can't. I don't know which. Yeah. So I'm just saying that number's going to have to change.
Okay.
Or it may change.
Yeah.
I am back and thank you. And I got here just on that note. We are not ready to put that salary out there in the wind. So I think we should hold that until we have that discussion. All right, Scott?
Yeah, that works for me. I'm outnumbered here. I'm not asking to say what the salary is. I'm just asking what number Latasha put in here so that we know how we arrived at the number we arrived at. But it's okay if I'm outvoted.
No, it's not a matter of being outvoted. It's a matter of who's going to watch the tape and know where they'd like to start asking for the money based on what we put out there. It's where we are ready to start in the budget. So I think
that makes sense to me. But of course, you know, the salary that we pay right now is public information. So it's pretty easy
all
to find.
salaries are public information. So you should have them out there where everybody can see them. But I don't think that what our potential new employee need to know should be out there so we can either push up or push down. But I'm not going to be there. You all can put it out there if you wish. I'm good.
All right. Can we go to police now?
Mayor, I'm the only one who hasn't commented yet on this.
You have the floor right on. I haven't taken it back. I just heard that comment.
Gotcha. Latasha, the only thing, and I know we've talked about it this year, and so I think this may help people. If we go to professional contract services, the one that's 30,000 and remained unchanged to 30,000, line item 5,400. That's where the artwork, the Arts Commission funding comes from. And I think it would be better for clarity if the Arts Commission was initially funded at 20,000. This year, obviously, they spent a lot less. So I think it would make sense to I don't know if you need the extra 10,000 in there because that was for, I think initially we had talked about strategic vision money, but based on us getting a new city manager, I think we need to have a conversation about that after a new city manager comes on board. And so I was thinking about taking the Arts Commission line item out of there, putting Arts Commission 20,000 into administrative services, so it's with the other city committees, and then you would free up $10,000 that you could use for other stuff.
For accounting purposes, can we leave it how it is? Because when the Art Commission submits those invoices, it's almost like under a contract. It's not art commission because it's not money going to the art commission. It's going to those artists.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's like we have like a contract with the artist. So I don't want anyone to kind of misread that because people might say, "Oh, the art commission got 30,000, but recreation commission only got 1,000." You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Yep.
Because we're actually paying the artist, which is a contract.
Gotcha. Then I would recommend lowering that line item unless there's, because the Arts Commission does not need $30,000. So I would recommend lowering that number down.
Can I, or whoever's giving the floor?
I have the floor right now. I would just, unless there's other money that we want to target with that $30,000, and Latasha, correct me if I'm wrong. So I should just ask the question, is there any other money we wanted to use that line item for?
Yes.
Okay. What is
that?
It's
art related. I think that leaves a little room for your economic development is trying to do some things art related on that Main Street corridor. And I think that leaves a little cushion for, because they did get a grant, as you know, if they need to supplement that grant in any way. So I think because that falls in lines with what that line item is for. So I think I would save that for if there's something that we can do artistic on that Rhode Island Avenue corridor.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Luke?
Selena?
Yeah, question for you. Are you thinking just for the arts line budget, or are you thinking about maintenance as well? I know you were thinking about potentially needing extra money there in case any maintenance needs to happen. Is that something you're thinking of considering? And is that including your 20 or not?
That's included in the 20. I don't think the commission needs more than that. And my guess is they'll spend under that, even including maintenance. But we may want to have a conversation about creating an own sub line item there with the maintenance along the lines of the legislation Brian went. And Mr. Rawlings, you have the floor.
So we're talking about the 5,400 in City Hall, right?
That's right.
Okay. What's included in that line item is our financial package. That's the server that hosts our financial system. And that's active fund.
That's not in 5402 professional services computer?
No, that's in 5,400. 5402 includes Nagaton that provides the services on terms of IT services that works with our IT person. Particularly, I believe they do a lot of work even with the emails even with the council. So
yeah, that's our server.
Yeah,
that's who hosts the server. Not there's
a server for the financial system that we have, and then you have another one for all of your emails and other services that they provide, which they've been around before we had the I believe for years before we had the new person that came on board that works with them. So that's the distinction between the two accounts.
So there should be some, because I'm reading from the description, it says professional contractual services, and it says costs incurred for third-party provided services in addition to funds allocated for Mount Rainier strategic planning creation, additions for public artwork, and an allocated language service provider for the main number. Okay, so that's there. Okay.
So it's there in 54. I just want you to be aware.
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
If you cut it, there's also something else in there. That's what I just want to bring to your attention.
Okay. Do we want to have, and I'll ask this, do we want to make some sub line items so it's clear how much is for each one?
No.
Okay. Latasha's saying no. Okay.
Because when you do that, you limit yourself.
Okay.
So no, because the artist could go, the money is a pool. So it leaves you room for if one goes over and one goes under.
Okay. I'm going to need, the Arts Commission will just need some guidance on what is their ceiling. So when they go to select the mural for next year, they know what their ceiling is. That would be, I would just request that from staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Luke, for taking over. I am back. I had to have that break and make calls. So thank you. Are we finished with the discussion on this? Are we ready to move to the next item?
Yes, we're on to public safety, police.
All right, please move to public safety. Latasha?
Wait, yeah, John is controlling it. Okay, you got it, John. All right, so public safety. Whew, this is one here. Public safety, you have an increase by 23%. And we have an increase in the salaries and wage and leave pay, which again, that's across the board. We have an increase in employee benefits. You will see a major increase in the number for workman comp insurance, as well as the medical insurance expense. And again, Mr. Rollins covered that earlier when he talked about he put the numbers in line to the actual department. So we have a decrease under materials and supplies by 44%. Vehicle and fuel oil decreased to $25,000 because that's just kind of more in line of what they're actually spending on that. We also have a decrease in police supplies and equipment and a decrease in computer equipment and supplies. Next, we have a decrease in repairs and maintenance, and that's only in the radio maintenance. Well, we actually added for radio maintenance. We added 300 for that, and the security cameras. The biggest decrease in this one, if I'm not mistaken, is the dispatch services. So you guys had conversation, you're going back and forth about that. We took it out. It can be added back in before you guys get into that big conversation. It was taken out because the last conversation I remember hearing, you guys had talked about taking it out. So we took it out, but it can be put back in. So that is a big decrease that we have in this area for professional services. That's one of the biggest. The increases also came in other services. We had an increase in the capital lease for the police vehicles, and I think those are the vehicles that we currently have. And then the infrastructure and telephone is pretty much the same. Building maintenance and repairs, we added 700, so it's now 10,700. Really might need to be a little more, but I think our major issue was fixed, which was that roof. And then the basement is being taken care of. We know with police, with speed camera and some other funding. And we also have in here the purchase of vehicles, and the purchase of the vehicles is being done or is proposed to be done with speed camera revenue. The fleet is old and aging out, so we need to replace some vehicles. And I know in an email to me, Luke had asked about were those vehicles going to be replaced with EV vehicles. And I said, no, that's not what was proposed to me. If that's something that you guys would like to stipulate, you can. And we can adjust those numbers accordingly.
So are we there? But those are the changes?
That's all I have.
All right. Since you brought Luke up with the EV stations, I'm going to ask Luke to go first, because one of the goals I have had now for, 15 years, Brian, was to get rid of every one of those cars we have with the carbon and the gas and go to electrical cars, or at least hybrids. I've heard every argument every chief before has offered that, what are all the excuses you want to offer? And I will still say that the city this size, that is less than a whole mile, square mile, or whatever kind of mile you call it, should not have the cars we have at this day and age. We ought to be at electrical cars, or at least hybrids, where we cut down on the cost of the fuel and the damage to the environment. Luke?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree 100%. I have a lot of pause with that number, 139,500. I know it's coming from speed camera revenue. I think there's other things we can spend money on from that speed camera revenue. So I'm not there. But I understand the argument. You have the revenue, why not spend it? But I think there's other stuff we can use that revenue for. I really want us to get to a fleet that's all electric. I wouldn't do that. This is me now speaking personally. I wouldn't do that all at once. I think there are improvements being made year after year. I would like to see, if we're going to purchase, I would like to see us start with one and see how that works, because there are going to be other issues, I think, that are going to impact collective bargaining with the union, whether that's you have an electric vehicle, do we still take those home, or do we leave that here where we have an EV charging station? And there's stuff like that that we really need to think through. So I think starting with one makes sense. I also know, and this is something the mayor talked about when we first came on, and I think I'm starting now to realize how right she was, which is there is free stuff out there, and we were just offered a free Ford Explorer, so with low miles. And I get it, it's not a brand new car with all the bells and whistles, so folks may say we're trying to get rid of an aging fleet, and so I get that argument. But again, I don't think I want to replace the fleet all at once. Aging cars aren't necessarily a bad thing. I understand there's a maintenance cost associated with them. That maintenance cost is in 99% of the cases less money than what it costs to buy a new car, because that new car just loses $10,000 the minute you drive it off the lot. And when you do a cash balance over time, you can have a 15-year-old car and it can cost you a lot of maintenance. That maintenance over 10 years is still less than the cost it had you to have a new car that had lower maintenance. So you never really, everybody's always like, oh, well, I want it to spend on maintenance. That's not how the math works out. So just really hesitant at that figure for those reasons. And I'll stop there.
So let me go to Selena. Then I'll go to Ward 2.
So I have a question and a comment. So one, I'll start with the question, Latasha. So this is where your house or the speed camera, and is there a purpose? Have you allocated all of it, divided by between the department? That'll be one. And number two, when it comes to the green fleet, I think that even if we start with what's it called, parking enforcement. As one of our other cars, I know code as well, maybe. With PD, we definitely need to look into the green cars, what is out there. So far, I've only seen like a little one. The Hyattsville house, I haven't seen like a big one, and I'm not sure what the expense hike might be for that or the maintenance. Also, why I want us to go slow as well when it comes to this, because when it comes to transporting people, the little cars might not have the capability to do that. So definitely maybe start, looking into, because parking enforcement's house in their PD, maybe start looking into that car being one of the first ones to be changed. And if I could get Latasha to answer my question. If you need clarity, let me know, Latasha.
Are you asking if all of the speed camera money is going to be spent here? That's no.
It's not allocated, right? It's just set, it's just there in place, correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Her questions is very simple. Is this where all the speed camera money is currently placed in the budget? Because, or better still, how is the speed camera money being spread out over the rest of the budget, I guess, in terms of safety and whatever? Oh, is that correct, Latasha? I mean,
no, this is a portion of it, yes. But there's still some out that's unaccounted for. That we can get to when we get to streets and sidewalks that we can account for.
And I appreciate that, because that's kind of where I'm going with that money as well.
This is not all accounted for under here, no. There's still some that's just out in the air.
All right, let me go to Ward 2. Brian?
Well, what do you mean by out in the air? Can't we have a list of how you're spending the speed camera money? What on a breakdown of how it's being spent?
Yes, no, when I say out in the air, meaning it's not solidified, because you guys have to tell me if it's okay, is what I'm saying. Meaning we propose for streets and sidewalks, we would like to use that speed camera money to do that. But you guys may come back and say, no, like you did last year, you cut it and you allocated it for the Memorial Park. So then we can't use speed camera for that.
So do we have a list in writing of a breakdown of what is being spent?
Right now, nothing's being spent, no.
No, I mean proposed.
This question is very different, Latasha. Right now, if I hear Brian,
no, there's not a list.
Okay,
well, we could use.
But I think he would like a list of what the speed camera money is and how you anticipate spending the speed camera money, so that we at least have some idea of how that $100,000, 3 million, 500,000, whatever we are going to take in is going to be spread out through the budget in terms of safety concerns? I think that's the question. The answer is we don't have such a list now, but would you please provide us with one? That would help. Is that
Thank
the
you.
question, Brian?
Yep, you got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so line item 4315, parking meter maintenance has been zeroed out. Is there a reason why we're not going to have any maintenance on our parking meters, or is there something going on there? I know they're new,
It was
but
my understanding, and I could be wrong, but it was my understanding that it was maintenance was included in our agreement with them.
So that's accounted for somewhere else. There's a contract expense or something somewhere else.
From my understanding, I could be with Chief.
That's correct. To my understanding, it is included in their agreement. It comes out of fees that go to the parking meter vendor.
Okay, and that's another line item in there somewhere?
No. They take it out of the money before they give us our money. So they collect the money, like if you pay with your card. So if there was maintenance or in our contract agreement, before they, like if they collect $1,000 and they had to use $500 for maintenance, then we only get $500. That's what was told to me when I got here.
So we never have we must get an accounting of how much money we're paying, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but that's not in the budget.
Ask the question differently, Brian, because you're right in the right field.
I mean, what percentage? I mean, it must be a percentage then that we know if that percentage is in the contract.
The answer to the question is no, we do not. Somewhere in that contract, which has not been seen now for a year, there are some terms and conditions we agreed to. What we need as mayor and council is an itemization of, one, how the money that is collected on our meters will be distributed between the city, the maintenance, and the company that is implementing the process for us. So if they're getting $1,000 and $500 worth of meter work is done, where does the other $500 go? Do they get half of that and we get half? What is the breakdown? Because you still got to pay for the meters, you still got to pay for the maintenance, and you still got to pay the people who are collecting. And then the question becomes, how much is that money left coming to the city? At least those would be my questions. And I thought that's where you were headed.
Yeah, basically, we should kind of know well, we've got a contract, so we can't break. I don't know how many years it's for, but we should kind of know what that's costing the city, I guess. I'm sure it's fine, but this is for future council, guys, you should keep an eye on that.
You need to
let's see, on 5423 parking citation recovery. So is that company doing if somebody doesn't pay their citation, they go after it for us, or how does that work?
Yep.
They do everything.
Yes, that's exactly
They go after it. We don't do anything.
And then they take a cut as well.
Yes.
Sure. Okay, so that's how they get paid.
Yes.
Let's see. The line 5700 capital projects, is that the lower level renovations? Is that what that stands for? The
Basement?
$106,000 for capital projects. 5,700, very bottom. I just want to know what the capital project is.
Yes, it's our basement.
Yeah, it's the basement.
Okay, so I've asked this question before. We were supposed to be spending the speed camera money from the old speed camera on that renovation. Have we zeroed out that old fund? Or is this money coming out of the old speed camera funding?
So, as I've said before, that funding, we're not sure. I am not sure. I have not seen that old speed camera funding. I know that that's what you were told. I'm not negating it. I'm just letting you know. I have not seen that. When I've asked former employees, I was not provided that information. They didn't know. So with that being said, I can only move forward off of what we have, what I know we have. This will be the speed camera, whatever is in that. Mr. Rollins, what's the current balance of the speed camera account? I think it's like 3 something.
Yeah. Hang on for a second. I'll get you.
Let me ask that question differently.
I don't need the number right now, but let me ask this. So the number he's about to give us is only from the current speed camera. There was no money in that account beforehand.
Majority of it is from the current speed cameras, yes.
The majority of it.
There was very little in that account before we started collecting.
Okay. All right. That's all my questions. I'm just curious about that particular.
I'm not going to answer my question. I'm going to leave it there. Let's go to Ward 1 and Ward 2. Ward. Did you speak, Scott? Because you're Ward 2, and I need to follow you with Brian.
No, it's all good. You went to Ward 1, and you're on me next. Yeah, that speed camera stuff is really mysterious because unless I invented a false memory, I vividly remember us maybe even voting in a meeting to allocate those funds. Anyway, that's very mysterious. I have a couple of questions about dispatch and about vehicle purchases. So, Latasha, for dispatch, the actuals are 0 for this year's budget. Is that just because we haven't paid yet? Line item. Sorry,
Mr. Rollins, have they billed us?
That for looking up.
Highest bill. Has Highest billed us? They haven't billed us.
No, and that's something the chief could say he's going to reach out. In fact, I have not seen any invoices.
Okay.
That is a Highest bill issue. We can't pay them until they send us an invoice. So.
Heard. Other folks might remember this. Excuse me. I'm gonna need a refresher on when we would need to notify Hyattsville if we decide
90 days.
Thank you. So currently the contract goes through the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
I can
June 30th, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So you would have
we need to let them know by April 1st.
Yes. Tracy did call me and ask me because they were preparing their budget, and I told her I wasn't sure. I would hopefully have a good idea after today.
Is that their city administrator? Tracy?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize.
No, that's fine. Okay, cool. So it sounds like we as mayor and council need to have some discussions with each other and with you and like now about that. Not literally now, but like very, 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 very soon. I'm going to switch to vehicle purchases. Latasha, you can answer this, but it might be a question for Mr. Alston if he's still on the line. I think he is.
He is.
How many vehicles are currently in service with the MRPD?
Currently, we have 16 vehicles in service for patrol, 3 pool cars, which are cars that are rotated into patrol whenever vehicles need to be maintained. Let's see, and we also have an additional one that replaced the one that was destroyed in the flood. So that's just being sent for outfit now.
So we have 20.
Okay, so about 20 vehicles. If we don't count the 3 that are sort of backup vehicles, then we've got 16 or 17. I personally did not support the purchase of any internal combustion vehicles for the MRPD ever again. And as a matter of fact, all 5 of us passed a resolution last year saying that our fleet would be 0 emissions by 2030. So that means we need to be buying 2 electrical cars every year for the next 9 years in order to meet that goal. So I'm willing to spend the money on new vehicles, but I will only support it if they're electric from here on out. That's what we all agreed we would do when we passed that non-binding resolution. Resolution was for show, or we're actually going to do it.
All right. Yeah, I am here. And I'm thinking that you just spoke. I'd like to go to Ward 1. Selena?
So I would like to say, I think I already spoke on the subject, but a question for maybe Chief when it comes to the PD cars, or maybe Mr. Rowling or Latasha. What are we looking into when it comes to the green fleet? Is that something that we are looking? I think that by 2030, we might be able to, we will probably be switching like another set of cars, Scott. So it's not like all or nothing at this point. But when it comes to retrofitting a green car, what are we looking in cost? Have you guys been able to gather that information yet to be able to have a P vehicle that we're able to meet the needs that we have for the city, at the same time be able to meet the green standards?
I want to answer that. Currently, I've done preliminary research just in the full size. Currently, there are a lot of things that need to be ironed out in those vehicles. I can see us eventually moving to all hybrid and more renewable energy reliable vehicles. But clearly, we don't want to jump in it right now. You see the vehicle in Hyattsville. To my understanding, it spends more time being towed, and that's not a vehicle we can use for police work, but just pretty much showing that we have a hybrid vehicle. I see now it is practical to start with replacing the vehicle we lost in the flood, the parking vehicle, to start by having our next hybrid in the parking enforcement. And then eventually we can, as the kind of the kinks are ironed out with the hybrids for police work, we can definitely move towards those. But right now we have immediate needs. We have immediate needs that we need to keep our fleet up and running. Clearly, we know what our focus is and our long-term focuses are in terms of moving to the renewable energy vehicles. So I think our purchase right now, this amount would allow us to purchase 3 new vehicles and to outfit those vehicles. But I'm really nervous that if we get on this right now, we're going to end up having more and attempting to maintain those vehicles. Everyone can't work on these vehicles at this time. We can't have our nearby mechanics work on them. They all have to go out and be serviced by the manufacturers. So we have to think of those things, because right now we're using local maintenance shops. So we're definitely on track to replace our fleet to those which are electric vehicles, but just not at this time.
So my follow-up question would be like, do we have a schedule of when it comes to when the new vehicles will be up for replacement, so that we could like tie them up to these future goals that we have agreed to when it comes to green energy and net zero?
Yes, I can look at the 5-year plan that I know Chief Morgan had put something together previously, and I can look over that and see what additions I have to keep us on track, and to also report that back to Mayor and Council.
Thank you so very much. Luke, did you have a chance on this one?
I did early, but I would just say if we don't think that hybrids, we can buy it right now, I'm where Scott is then. I would zero out this line item and use it to do a 2-cent tax cut from 81 down to 79 cents for single family homeowners and townhomes. Thank you.
Let me go to Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Alston knows I deeply respect him and like him as a person, but I just disagree with everything that you just said. And even if I'm wrong about that, it doesn't change the fact that we passed a resolution saying we were going to move to a zero emission fleet 9 years from now. I don't think that the way that you characterized electric vehicles in police work is accurate. And by evidence of that, the city of Denver is purchasing 200 electric vehicles for their police fleet in the next 4 years. The city of Boston, which has over 3,000 vehicles, is going to be completely electric by 2030. So if Boston can buy 3,200 electric cars, we can buy 1, or we can buy 2. We have the infrastructure in place for charging it in the city. It's part of why we built those stations. I would rather fund putting an electric charging station at the PD than buying a car at this point. It's all about setting yourself up by getting the infrastructure in place. We've started that process, and whether our police officers like it or not, respectfully, our goal is to have an electric fleet by 2030. And that, as a council member, I plan to follow through with that, and I will not support the purchase of any internal combustion vehicles for the police department ever again. Maybe I could be talked into a hybrid, but I don't think I can. So that's just where I'm at. And I just so the four of you know, that's where I'm at with this. Otherwise, I won't personally approve purchasing any vehicles at all if they're not going to be electric.
Mr. Netler, and then I'm going to follow Mr. Netler on this one.
We're paying for these vehicles out of the speed camera money. So it's not about decreasing the tax rate, because that's not involved with purchasing these vehicles, unless I missed something along the way there.
But you could allocate that funding to another safety thing.
Yes.
Not like there's other revenue in the police.
I'm not going to.
That doesn't affect the tax rate.
Excuse me. Once Brian finished, Luke, I'm speaking.
I just don't understand how that affects the tax rate if we're paying for it out there.
Just to go and stop. You said it kind of different than the way I would say it. It's not a matter of respecting anybody's opinion. The fact of the matter is there are states and municipalities that have electric police fleets, and they are working. They didn't just come this year. They're not just going to buy them between now and 2030. I introduced this concept to the city at least 15 years ago when police cars were going electric. There were issues. There were the issue of who's going to work on it, how you're going to charge it, no station, whatever. One of the things I've been pushing our city toward is the infrastructure. They should have, if the former chief had followed through, there was a company that offered to put 2, if not 3 charging stations up there in the back of the current police station. I don't know if they got done or not, all right? I know they would have put in the electric work for the stations to be implemented. I'm not certain if it got done. I did not go to check. It was a directive to be done. The second thing is we already have charging stations at public work that needs to be used, all right? We just installed 3 public ones on our public streets that can also be used. Pepco has also agreed, as of this past week, to put 3 additional ones on Barnum. So we are building the infrastructure. The former governor, O'Malley, has directed, and the current legislatures have continued to implement, that in 2025, there should be 250,000 electric cars on the road. They're giving away electric stations or whatever. The one valid piece that may still be out there that I have not worked on and we need to work on is who's going to work on these electric cars. They're coming, but they have to be serviced. They have to be maintained. And we need to definitely have folks who can work on them if we're going to buy them and insist on using them. There are places that are coming. The state is working on them to train mechanics to work on these electric vehicles. So I wouldn't rush us into it, because you're right. Highsville get towed a lot because they don't have charging stations. But now almost every municipality has at least one charging station somewhere. You can always charge at any and every one of the people who sell those things. They have charging stations.
Mayor?
Okay. Excuse me?
I was just, when you finish, may I make a recommendation?
Yes, but let me finish first, please. You made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
So there is not a case of there's nobody to work on them, but dealers that sell them to you work on them. They also have the charging station. The question that this city has to answer is, how committed is it to going green? And no, I'm not saying buy all of them at once, but as we trade out cars in our fleet, we ought to be bringing in electric cars. Should you always keep a gas guzzler around? Maybe, But that shouldn't be the reason for not buying them. Latasha.
Yes, so can I make this recommendation or ask of the mayor and council? Can we leave this line item as is, have Mr. Interim Chief Austin go out, get me a price on electric vehicles, the price to purchase the vehicles as well as the to outfit them, and see if we can get it in line with this number. And I'm thinking 2, probably, because I know they're a little bit more expensive, and this was for 3
Not
vehicles,
much.
but I'm thinking 2.
Electric vehicles, believe it or not, have come down.
However many you can get with this number. So may I make that suggestion and we come back with?
I won't accept that personally, but I won't be there for the expenditure. That amount of money, is that 100,000 in the line item?
It's 139,000.
You can buy almost our fleet with that, practically. But you all decide how many you want to put in there. If you want to keep the whole line item for that, I don't think you need $139,000 to buy 2 or even 4 electric cars. If you're saying to me that you want to keep half of that money in there, and add maybe another 10,000 for the striping it, the putting the light fixtures on it, for doing those things to make it a police car.
So, man, that's what I was saying. I was saying if we can see how much can we get at minimum 2 vehicles.
Okay.
With the outfitting.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
I back up. Yes.
And then you can adjust that number for your next round.
I think all I'm offering is, when will this city stop saying what we can't do and say what the heck we are going to do and do it?
Well, that's what I was just saying. So if you can allow that change, so for the next budget, you'll have that number of what the cost is for at minimum 2 electrical vehicles that are outfitted.
I'm good. Selena.
Yeah. So I don't want to come out of this meeting thinking nobody wants to support. It sounds like there's a lot of support for it. Definitely, Latasha, if you could get that information in front of us, including the maintenance plan, but there's been a little bit of concerns. And I'll be honest with you, we did had a couple of people that were not very happy with the e-stations, because they feel like we need to start focusing more on food and bike only for residents and the whole entire city. So I will say yes to that. That's originally why I wanted to, the intention of like having the parking enforcement, even the code cards, go green, so that way we could like tune up some of the minor details that we needed to, so that will get us to like the next purchase of the cars. So I definitely don't want it to make boil it down to just 2, because we definitely need to be able to get the other 3 cards to get us where the numbers at to jumpstart us as well. So so maintenance, where we're gonna get it, cost for that as well, Latasha, and everything else you mentioned. Thank you for that.
Okay, but I think the other, I'm just talking about this police budget, because when we get the code enforcement, I want to see a green car that's working. When I get to any other cars the city is buying, the rule says we're going to buy green, and it's about time we just actually do it. Thank you. So if everybody else want to leave that amount in there, I'm fine with it. But just consider that we can do it. It is being done. And if we're always priding ourselves on being first, and we would have been if I'd have gotten it done 15 years ago, let's get these cars in here. Thank you.
Mayor, this is Scott Cecil. As somebody just pointed out to me privately, we could also look into leasing vehicles if folks are interested in spending a little bit less money and or interested in seeing the efficacy of these electric vehicles. I just want to reiterate, I think that we're, I'm not saying that this is a silver bullet, but I think we're making the perfect the enemy of the good. There's nothing that's true about electric vehicles that's also not true of internal combustion vehicles. They also have to be fitted to be police cars. They also need to have maintenance and mechanics work on them. And, frankly, with 8-9 years from now, if every year we're purchasing 1 or 2 or more electric vehicles, then a decade from now, when our entire fleet is electric, the money that we would have been spending on gas can pay for a mechanic. So just there's a trade-off here. And I also want to say, even if this isn't more expensive, even if this isn't less expensive in the short term, and even if it is more complicated, and even if it makes our police department's lives a little bit more difficult, all of those things are better are much easier to deal with than global catastrophic climate change. And we just have to be serious about, we're either going to, as the mayor said, we're either going to go green or we aren't. And so I just feel like right now is a very important inflection point, being that this is the first budget we're going to pass after having passed our climate resolution. And I just don't want that climate resolution to have just been something that we passed to make ourselves feel good and to make us look good. It needs to be something that we're going to follow through with, in my opinion, and now is the time to start.
Just one point, though, Councilmember Cecil. Lease cars have limits on the number of miles, and when you go over, that car becomes, even if it's your private leasing, they become extremely expensive. And so it's something to consider, but also consider the other costs that go with it, in addition to just being able to say we have it and we're using it. I just looked up, as you did earlier, what one city that's using electric cars, and I started to put it in the chat. But the chief said those cars paid for themselves and more in the year that they've used them. So I think we need to look for how to get them, how to use them, and let them pay for themselves. All right. Anything else on that item? And thank you all so much for the healthy discussion on it.
It's Brian.
Yes, Brian.
I don't remember if you were on with us when Latasha told us that we basically should make a decision about dispatch by April 1st, which is, as I recall, next week. So either we discuss that now or we're going to have a special meeting.
I'm ready for that discussion, but I want to ask the question differently because Latasha said something earlier that we had the zero in there because we'd had healthy discussion around it and we had not come to a decision. Your zero is not there because you need to renew the contract as such, but you all were discussing whether you wanted county to do your dispatch. And the word on the street was at that meeting that, quote, county dispatch is zero. And the other side of that argument was because you do your own dispatching and whatever, it impacts your differential. So you all need to make a decision whether you want to go county for the zero or you want to pay the $65,000 and continue with having an employee in Hinesville or whatever you want to call their dispatch service, directly responsible for Mount Rainier and know your streets and what your needs are and where your citizens are to call to get the service. One of the discussion pieces that I recall was that the 301-985-6565 could also move to the county so it wouldn't cause the disruption of them having to learn a new number in order for the dispatch. So you all need to decide, do you want to continue having dispatch done out of Hinesville, which is going to cost you $65,000, or do you want to go with the county and cost you zero, but have other losses in terms of dollars that come to the city? If I remember that discussion correctly, Latasha mentioned that the differential wouldn't go down that much or wouldn't be impacted that much. So I think it's a decision the three of you need to make, because if I was making the decision, I would be supporting and stand with Hinesville because one, the relationship, two, the expedition, how expedited they handle our current service, and what I know as a fact with dispatch from the county is not going to give you the quality that you've been used to. So you all need to decide that. Selena, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was going to say, so aside from everything you just mentioned, we also need to take in consideration that our parking, when it comes to towing and stuff, is with Hinesville, and at that point, currently is part of everything they offer as well. So if we decide to move with the county, we will have to also figure out who's going to do that for us, and if it's Hinesville, what it'll mean when it comes to the cost associated with it. So it's not going to be a free ride when it comes. I mean, a free a zero add line item. If all the other stuff, we need to look for outsourcers to find them.
Well, with past dispatch from Bladensburg in previous years, Bob Towing handled our towing as part of our parking and enforcement. So those are things you have to consider, but that zero isn't just a zero because you haven't gotten a bill. That's the point I was trying to make. That zero has a lot to do with the discussion we had about going with the county, which was going to cost us zero. What is you all's pleasure?
I might need the lieutenant to walk me through, because I think when we walked through the dispatch services, it was clear to me at the time as to why we want to just rely on the county. When you call, it goes to the county, who then has to call, who can call directly us to get it dispatched, correct, Lieutenant? Am I, or interim chief, I should say?
Are you talking about how it works now?
I'm talking about how it would work if we go to the county.
No, if you go to the county, when they call 911, it'll go to the county and they will dispatch. They will
Dispatch
call
ours immediately.
Yeah,
Right.
our police.
Yep, I'm good with that. Yep, I'm good with that. Because I think right now there's the disconnect in that if you call the county, it goes to
they send you the highest bill. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep, that's what I was getting at, Latasha. Thank you. Yep. So I'm good with dropping the line item to zero and going to the county.
I'm so glad I won't be part of those complaints that you're going to receive. Have fun with it. Right now, a dispatch from the county of its own fleet takes 10 to 15 minutes to get to you. What do you think it's going to take when you add another level of government?
But right now, the difference is, so right now, what happens is you call Hyattsville, right? Hyattsville dispatches our officer. Hyattsville calls us to dispatch our officer. That's what happens right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to replace that, and we're going to say, instead of going to Hyattsville, go to the county, who will call our office and dispatch. So there shouldn't be a difference. There shouldn't be a level of service drop. What I think you're describing is the reality of the current moment, in that there is a level of service drop when you go to the county. So right now,
No, I'm not. I'm describing exactly what the county does currently.
Right, but the county...
And it doesn't matter who they're dispatching to. I'm afraid of, and I would love to be proven wrong, that the county is going to dispatch as quickly and as fast as Hyattsville does to our municipality. And I don't believe it's possible. I'm saying joining the county for your dispatch simply as an additional level of dispatching that the county is already not doing well, even with its own fleet. And now they're going to have to do our fleet, their fleet, North Brentwood, and everybody else in the county that does not have their own dispatch service. Believe me, Luke, when I say this,
Okay.
Hyattsville is not dispatching of its own because they can't get it free from the county. They can too. Ask why.
Yep.
Bladenburg dispatches for itself.
Okay.
They can also get it free from the county. Ask why. And keep going down each of your municipalities that handle their own dispatching and ask why.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, zero looks beautiful until you're in the middle of a mugging or a robbery, and your Hyattsville can have somebody there in 5 minutes, and you got to wait 20 minutes for them to get dispatched to you. The levels of when they send it to you may follow the same operation. What about the time?
Thank you, Mayor.
But I think Chief Austin had something to say. I saw his head like this a couple of times.
If I can chime in.
All I offer is think about not just the act, but the execution of the act.
Yep, makes sense.
Chief, you have the floor.
No, let me allow council to finish, please, Mayor.
Council, I think we're finished. I just ran my mouth too long.
No,
I see Scott's hand. I see
What is
Scott's
Brian?
hand, and then I see Brian. And I see Selena.
Keep it real simple. I need more information before I know which way I'm going to go here. But just for the sake of the fact that we only have 5 days to notify Hyattsville if we're discontinuing, I support continuing to have Hyattsville do our dispatch. And if we want to have this conversation again moving forward, we totally can. I think that would include actually getting data about response times for county dispatch, so that, I trust Mayor Miles's judgment here and everything you said about there's a reason Hyattsville and Bladensburg aren't using the county service. That's very compelling to me to hear you say that, and that makes sense. But I want to see actual numbers. How long does it actually take for dispatch when the county is dispatching for municipal police departments? And how long is it taking Hyattsville to get for us to dispatch our officers? I would like to know more information about that before I can make an educated decision. So at this point, I think we should continue as we are rather than rushing a decision so we can get to Hyattsville by April 1st.
I think I saw Selena, then Brian.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around, but okay.
Okay, then do it, Brian. Remember, I'm trying to keep up.
I haven't had a chance to speak on this. So first of all, we're paying for this through the speed camera money, I assume. So it's not really, we're spending speed camera money. It's a service. So that would be in favor of staying with status quo. I didn't understand the parking. Selena mentioned a parking. Is that the towing? They were doing the towing for free, basically, out of Hyattsville. And if so, we'd have to put that amount into the budget somewhere else if we go with the county. The glitch for me is what Luke brought up. The problem is if somebody calls 911, it goes to the county, and then they have to relay that to Hyattsville, and then Hyattsville to us. So that's the downside of using Hyattsville when people use 911. We talked about we needed to better publicize that they needed to be calling the 6565 number to go directly to Hyattsville unless it's a medical emergency, which of course you would call 911. But I don't know that we've done much on publicizing that as best we can. Anyway, I think at this point I'm with status quo, mainly because I think, if I'm wrong, correct me, that we're spending speed camera money or could use speed camera money to pay for the $67,000 that it costs us.
Selena?
Yeah, so I think definitely I'm not there for rushing this decision. I think we could definitely have a meeting during the summer just to focus on this and give the staff enough time to look at it. So that way, not only do we have a meeting about this for, one item only, but at the same time have time to be able to make the decision and notify Hyattsville. When it came to the parking garage, Brian, maybe Chief could explain to you a little, to the team collectively a little bit better, because I know that's one of the things that they keep telling us about. When it comes to the spawn rate, I think it's 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes even less. When it comes to outreach, the other thing to consider is Hyattsville right now is doing a whole entire training when it comes to mental healthness to the whole entire team, including their dispatch. That is something that we'll be getting as well. The other thing is, I know we pay for one person, but if there's 2 other people in the room and the call comes in, they will transfer over. So we're not just getting one person helping us out as well. So keep that in consideration. To me, it's a short notice. So yeah, I will definitely schedule for us to have a meeting in the summer just to discuss this, to give the staff, chief, and everybody else time to be able to rethink this.
Okay. There was something someone said earlier. So I would like to go to Chief Austin and have him talk about dispatch for a minute. But I think it's an awesome idea to kind of stay where you are. Oh, I know the other thing I wanted to say. Even if you decided to go with the county right now, remember it took us 30 days or 45 days or something to transfer over from Bladensburg to Hyattsville, because they got to transfer over your records. They have to transfer over all of your data. They have to set up you on the queue or the SKU, whatever it is they have to set you up on. And you can't do that in 5 days.
I think
it doesn't happen that quickly. But go ahead. I was going to Austin. Then I'll come to you, Latasha.
I was going to speak for him.
Oh, you're going to speak for him? Please speak for him.
I think that we have the consensus to stick with Hyattsville. Selena and, you, Selena, and Scott, and Brian kind of. So I think we already put it back in the budget. I don't think that there's much time, because everyone kind of agreed that they wanted more research or more information, and we don't have that in the 5 days.
So you don't have transfer overtime either.
Yeah, so I think that the decision was kind of made. I don't know that there's more discussion that's needed, to continue to beat the dead horse. We put it back. We can put it back in and just kind of adjust the budget from there.
But are we using speed camera money to pay for it?
We can.
You
Because
should.
you're going to come up, yeah, you're going to come up with $67,000 in order to do it. So, okay.
Well, we've been changing this number, so we'll figure it out.
Thank you so very much. We got it. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? And that was a good discussion around the zero.
Mayor, I have a question for you. This is Scott.
Yes, Scott.
Could you or Brian, just anytime offline, give me the history of why we switched from Bladensburg to Hyattsville? Just so I can
give it
understand
to
the history.
I can give it to you now. I don't have to go offline. It's very quick. Their cost kept going up and up and up, and they changed councils, and it was going up. And in previous years, I've been able to work with their mayor to keep it down, to keep it from going up. And Hyattsville had a complete renovation of its police department. They were given a grant of an X number of dollars, and they were allowed to bring in other municipalities into their dispatch service. They kept our costs down. They gave us our own individual dispatch person and made it directly answerable to Mount Rainier. Couldn't get a better deal, so we took it.
Great.
We also had a lot of complaints from residents. Not a lot, but we had complaints about the dispatch.
Bladensburg service dispatch. Mm-hmm. So it was a good deal. We already had a partnership with them. They were willing to bring us in under their grant. And of course, we decided to take it.
Yeah, and God, this is Selena. And to just be clear, this happened within the last 4 years, so it's not too far gone when the change happened. So it's mighty recently.
Latasha, you were trying to say something.
I'm ready to go to Public Works.
We're ready to go to Public Works if you are.
I'm ready.
You're going to get a lunch out of this sometime.
This is our last one. This is.
I was going to say, if you all could get me out of here by 12:30, Chief and the rest of you, you know I got to go pick up them 100 boxes and get them to the police station and get them distributed. So
yeah,
I'm there.
This the last one. This is it. We're going to make the changes and get you guys the new numbers, and that's it. All right. Public Works. Oh, I got a headache. 8% increase. Of course, salaries, that's across the board. Benefits, this is more in line with what they are, what their share of the medical insurance and the workman's comp is. Mr. Rollins explained that already. There was a slight increase in materials and supplies. And that was for the vehicle fuel and oil. We increased it from 18 to 20,000. Repair and maintenance, a slight increase for vehicle repair and maintenance from 50,000 to 55,000. Professional services was actually a decrease. I don't know why it's the professional contract services. That might be a mistake. I don't know why that's zeroed out. I apologize for that. Temporary labor went up from 20,000 to 25. Vehicle insurance went down to 15. We had an increase in other services and charges, and that increase is the principal for the new truck lease. It's now $30,693.04, and that may have been the number the whole time. It just maybe not have been reflected by previous administrations. An increase in infrastructure and facility maintenance. We increased the building repair and maintenance from 15,000 to 20,000. As you know, we had that flood last year and we didn't have enough to cover, but also keeping in mind, and this is something that maybe perhaps your next city manager should implement, something that I wanted to, but I couldn't. We really need to have line items for each city-owned building.
Yes.
We really need to have for their maintenance, because right now we're like pulling it, when something happens at the library or something happens at the insurance building, we're pulling it out of Public Works or we're pulling it out, but they really need, each building needs its own building maintenance. Because when, and this is really quick and I'll shut up. I'll continue. When you guys look at the budget and you look at, let's say, like, for instance, Public Works building maintenance, you're only thinking, oh, this is for Wells Avenue. That's it. This is Wells Avenue, where in actuality it's not. Because when we have a repair that has to happen in another building, what finance will do is basically whichever, whether City Hall or Public Works, whoever got the money, is where it's going to come out of. So that's just something to consider and to keep in the back of your minds for the next person. You know, you really need to create your own budget line items, and not just for building, repair, and maintenance, but also for their electricity, their gas, their water, you know, so you can get a true picture of what you're spending on those buildings. So that's that. So we increased that because we're, you know, again, their maintenance is not only for public works, but they also sometimes cover the other buildings as well. We decreased tree maintenance from 40,000 to 20,000. I'll leave that to Luke because I know that the tree commission put some information out that they wanted some additional funding. Grounds maintenance, we increased from 20,000 to 25,000. And street sidewalk and repair, we added $100,000 into that because we did not have anything. Luke, you had a question about which streets it was going to be. Mr. Kamali sent that over with the streets. So that is in there on which streets exactly are for repair. I don't think that is speed camera designated funding. That street sidewalk, that will be speed camera funding as well. And I know you guys want a list of all those items, and we'll get you that list. Capital projects and expenses. This is the grants, Memorial Park and Spring Park. So 200,000 is for Memorial Park and 100,000 is for Spring Park. So in full transparency, if you know, we got 2 grants for Memorial Park. Both were $100,000 and both are matching grants. So we have to match $200,000. So that's why
one was 200 and one was 100.
My apologies, and we have to match it.
Yep, thanks.
So that concludes my
Thank you so much. And yes, I became aware of the error in our judgment about the 100,000 and the 200,000. So that was what we agreed to do, but we didn't allocate that exactly the way we needed to. And we need to do that because we're going to go forward with our projects and we're going to finish them. So if we don't have enough in the current budget and it's going to carry over to the next, the 2022 budget should have the sufficient funds to do our match. And you know, it can be in kind just as easily. It can be in staff time. It could be in volunteer hours, but the need to match is there. And I think we can do it. We have volunteers cleaning the avenue all the time. Brooke does it. We can find the match. So I think we're going to be all right, even if we don't do cash to cash. We can do in kind. And that's the other thing our budget never carries, is any of those kind of things. So what is your pleasure with this new, with the Public Works Department, with this new section of discussion? Let me start with Selena, whose hand is up. That means I'm going to come to you next, Luke. That means I'm going to go to you next, Brian. Then I'm going to come to Scott. So if you all remember the order, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll leave the trees to Luke, but I'm definitely in support of hiking up that amount to be able, because I know we cut it down the previous year, and I fear that if we can continue not funding them, those trees are not gonna survive much longer. The one I want to focus is the street and sidewalk repair. I would like for us to utilize some of the speed camera in there. It looks like it's a 400 increase, but in reality, we did not do any for last year. Well, what current year will be. I think we only put like $20,000 for in case something was needed. So I like for it to be funded back to where it was. We still have a lot of streets and sidewalks that do need to be fixed, and I don't think they'll be able to survive any longer. And the longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes for us to repair, and the bigger the things that we need to be repaired become. So I would like to look at that. Right now it's at 100,000. I'm more in the 300, 400,000 number. And if we could fund that with speed camera, I definitely would like that.
Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. I forwarded everyone the email from Kamali. Thank you, Latasha, about the sidewalks and streets slated for construction with the $100,000. So just everybody should have that. If you want to look at that and have any concerns about that, we could talk about that at the next meeting or here. Regarding tree maintenance, I know you guys have asked me to talk about that, but that is Brian, so I don't want to step on his feet there. But they've asked for $60,000 for both tree maintenance and tree purchase. Not both. For tree maintenance and tree purchase, everything they do, they want $60,000 for. And so I am in support of that. So right now we have $20,000 slated for maintenance, so that would be a $40,000 increase that hopefully we could get from the reduction in car purchases or somewhere else. So that's where I am there, and that's all my comments.
Okay, I'm going to Brian, then to Scott. Tell me, I want lunch too.
I would support, we did decrease it last year because we weren't sure about our revenue flow. It turned out we're okay. We'll be in a problem this coming fiscal year, we'll find out. But I would support raising that to what the tree commission's asked. They did ask for $5,000 for purchases trees. That's a separate line item, just to make that clear. So Latasha, you said that all of the building maintenance is in this department. So does that include?
No.
So where's the civic center, Potts Hall renovations?
So that's what I was saying. So right now, everything is spread out between City Hall and Public Works for your building maintenance. So if anything happens in Potts Hall, it's really a matter of Safanda and Ray saying, okay, who has the money to cover this? Does Public Works have it or does City Hall have it?
Okay, well, as I mentioned during revenue discussion, we need to figure out if there's any of that bond money left.
Correct.
And then it needs to be reflected somewhere. I don't know how you do that because there's no line item for it. I thought there was a line item for the Civic Center, but maybe not.
It used to be.
That's what I was saying when I was saying that we need to create for each building their own separate.
Okay, so again, my point is we have to match whatever we spend out of that bond. So that needs to be somewhere that we allocated the match because it requires that we have to show the state that we had a match.
Yes.
And that happened about 2 years ago, but that's long over.
So that goes back to—
I know you're working on it.
Yeah.
I'm basically bringing this up just to remind the council members that you can't let this drop. And I know Liz is working on it, but I'm just a little concerned about it, that's all. That's it.
Scott.
Let me switch to my screen so John doesn't have to scroll. I don't think I have much to say other than just to jog folks' memory about the tree maintenance budget line item for the tree commission. It sounds like we're all on the same page that we want to fully fund what the tree commission is asking for, or maybe close to that. Maybe not all of us. I see some head shaking, but I just wanted to remind folks that last year the city manager's budget actually was for $30,000, and then I asked for $10,000 more with Brian during a meeting, so we actually negotiated it up. So I just wanted to point out that this $20,000 proposal is actually a cut from last year. So it's like a continuing trend of cutting, at least from the vantage point of and this is not attacking Latasha. I'm not saying she hates trees, but the city manager's last two budgets have been cutting that line item year over year. And the only reason it was $40,000 last year is because we voted for that. So yeah, Latasha, it's a priority for us. So we definitely, it sounds like most of us want to fund this a little bit more than what you've got here.
Thank you so much. And you interpreted my head shake exactly correct. I'm not for adding additional 40,000 until I have some discussion about what we're doing with the 40,000. I probably did not read the proposal, and if I did, I don't remember it. I do know the city has allocated to it from the county over 100+ trees that are going to have to get planted somewhere in the city. So if any of that 40 or 60,000 is for buying and planting trees, I'm totally against that. We right now have a difficulty on where we're going to put the 100 trees plus that are going to be coming to the city. In addition to that, and I just sent you all an email that came to Mr. Kamali, I think Latasha, earlier this week. about the percent of trees that you all can get or will be getting from the county or however that thing is going to work. So before I'm willing to pull 60,000 into a line item for trees and more trees and another 5,000 somewhere else down in the budget for purchasing trees, I think we need to see what we're going to do with the 100+ trees we're going to be receiving. The work on the levee is almost finished. They will never be able to plant all the trees back that they've taken down in that area. So we need to look around the city and say, where are we going to put these 100+ trees that we're going to be getting, and why are we going to buy them if they're going to be given to us? So I hesitate to put another. If you want to put another 10,000, I'll buy that, because you're going to have to help plant them. But the county said they would plant those trees too, and they give us a year guarantee on the trees once they've been planted. So you got some assurance on it. You got somebody else planting them. Why am I putting in $60,000?
Mayor,
I saw your hand, Brian.
the 60,000 is for maintenance, not for purchasing trees. The purchasing
I said I
trees,
need to know.
they're only asking for 5,000, and I think that's because we have Arbor Day and things like that, and there's no guarantee we're going to get those county trees in the next year. So I think that's why it was only 5,000 in the purchasing line.
But why do I need 60,000 for maintenance? What kind of maintenance are we doing?
We're paying for the arborist and for the
Isn't that
trim.
under professional services?
Maybe it is. I don't know, but we have to trim a lot of trees. We've got a lot of trees, so that's why they're doing it. But I'm just trying to help you out. Understand.
Help me understand, because I have been pushing trees for years. But if I'm getting 100+ trees, I want them planted. I don't want us buying them. If it's for maintenance, then I see a different take on that. But the county is also planting the trees and guaranteeing the trees. So keep that in mind as you all add the money. Anything else on the, it was something else I needed to say. I've forgotten it, but keep talking, I'll remember. Anything else? Hearing nothing else. Latasha, you all have a lot of work cut out for you all for the next presentation. But overall, thank you for a very good budget. Oh, I know what else I wanted to say. At some point in time, back when, we had all those things separated out. We had a capital improvement budget where we put in streets and sidewalks and buildings and all of that stuff that was separate from our general budget and general fund. It, in my opinion, was a better way to do it. I would like to see us kind of go back to some of that so that you do know what it's costing us to fix public works or the police station. Suggestion going forward, I thank Latasha for making it. We have a good budget here, folks. Look, tweak it, and I think you'll have something that will work for us very well going forward in the future. And I won't probably get to do another whole budget again in my life with the city. And so I'm waiting to see us come out with an outstanding budget. The only other thing I've asked for over the years, and I hope we can get there, is we ought to do a 5-year budget plan that kind of tells us where we're going as we work forward to building our city. I introduced that thought 10 years ago. I hope in the next 5, since I couldn't get it done, that you all get it done. It gives you a better budget to work forward with. So, Selena, I see your hand, and then I want you all to give me a motion to adjourn. I see your hand too, Brian.
So,
I'm trying to pass out food. Yes.
I was going to say, one of the best advice I followed from you was take the MML classes to be able to be where you're at, right, when it came to understanding the budget, and also the graduate classes. So I remember coming back and telling you, we need to get this done, and definitely something I want to push to have a bigger, projective when it comes to expenses in a 5-year, to see what we spent in the past, but also what we're going to spend in the future. And that will allow us to see if we're purchasing, green infrastructure, like how's it going to be planned on the next 5-year plan, in order for us just not to make decisions on a bubble for 1 year only. I don't think that's smart. We need to be looking at a 5-year plan. Correct. And the other thing is, like, I definitely would like to add either in the budget or somewhere when it comes to our building portfolio. I think that definitely that needs to be added somewhere probably in the budget, so that way this is like the different buildings that belong to the city or the properties that belong to the city along with that, because that's also part of our added income or research that we have. And lastly, just a note, I think it was about 350,000 or something like that it was mentioned in a previous meeting, like a while back, when it came to the old revenue for the red cameras. So maybe we will need to go back to the tapes to figure out where that was, but that's about the number that was mentioned for previously red camera money previously to this one. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess the last piece that, Brian, I did see your hand. Just let me throw this out while it's, I'm going to forget, so I'm ready to leave now. But I think this council going forward ought to require that our city does a portfolio on the value of the properties we own. We don't think about that. But believe it or not, you all are rich in buildings and land and property, but you don't count it when you're negotiating costs or trying to get a bond bill or whatever, because it's written down nowhere. So I really suggest you get it done. I saw your hand, Scott. No, I saw Brian. Didn't I see your hand, Brian?
Yeah.
I saw Brian, then I saw yours, Scott.
Tasha, did you put anything in for the Gupta property? We're going to get revenue from the rent, and then we're going to have utilities. And then, of course, it's going to be a huge expense for the renovations, but we don't know what that's going to be.
No, so if you guys recall, I meant to mention this earlier. If you recall, this budget was done back in January.
Yeah, no, I know.
We've been working on this and that building since June of last year. So anticipation, honey, anticipation.
We'll add that in the I meant to bring that up with the when you guys talked about the Recovery Relief Fund. This was done well before Congress passed that, so we can definitely add all of those things in.
Yeah. Okay. And then so I just noticed so I know contingencies at the end, and we don't seem to want to talk about it, but it says in the text that there's $50,000 in the contingency. But in the general fund expenditures, the overall, the very beginning of the budget, in that line item for contingency, it has $190,000, $190,165.70. So where did that number come from?
We have to the verbiage page needs to be updated. Yeah.
So where did you get that weird number for the contingency in line item 5598?
That's how you balance the budget.
That's not good enough. Go back to the drawing board and give us some realistic crap.
Oh, wait, whoa. So why couldn't that just be 50,000 and then that other contingency money be?
Brian, where is this line item? I'm sorry, I'm not following the conversation.
Overall general fund expenditure sheet.
General fund,
beginning of the budget.
Okay.
It's line item 5598.
And it's page 11.
So if we only put 50,000 in contingency, we have all that other money to pay for all these other things.
Well, wait, my contingency says 188,287.
Well, maybe I broke down the number wrong.
Am I wrong?
No, you're probably right, but it's still a huge amount of money.
Well, last year you had 551,000.
That's because we did budget
we did the budget amendment. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah. I see Mr. Rollins.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Rollins.
Mr. Rollins, you have the floor. And so you all don't go much longer. I really will leave you, and Luke will have the floor to close us out. But I think we've covered the budget.
Okay.
Mr. Rollins.
Just quickly, the contingency is 188. It is not uncommon that when you have this, that council can reserve a certain portion of that. And I believe the way I read this is that $50,000 is designated for emergencies, whereas you could still have 188 for something else, but at least $50,000 you want to designate that particularly for emergencies. It doesn't mean that all of this contingency is for emergency. It could be used for other services. It's not uncommon that even with reserves, you will have other former councils will take reserve and designate a certain portion for a particular purpose, and it's only used for that purpose. That's the way I had read this from last year.
Okay, well, we've never done it that way, Mr. Alms, and I think what we've done is we've usually put about 50,000 in, so the city manager has money if there's an immediate emergency that doesn't need a council vote. But I would say that, in my opinion, I would leave it at 50, take that other money that's there and reallocate it to some of these other things that we've changed around. That's my opinion on that.
And what would happen if you need more? If something comes up that requires more than $50,000?
What we did last year is we had to do a budget amendment and we transferred money from unexpended line items and if necessary from the reserve to do that. And it takes 4 votes, yes, but if it's that big of an emergency or a problem, I think you're going to have the votes to do that.
Okay, well, that being said, then
that's my opinion. That's my personal opinion.
Well, that would help that some of these things we talked today, I noticed there's a lot of increases in the budget.
Yes.
But I get what you're saying. I was wondering about that, but that will help to balance it with those increases. That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. Scott, you
Look,
have hand raised.
Scott has the floor, and I am going to leave. Thank you, Scott. Take the floor, and I'm going to work for us in a different capacity.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Mayor.
Bye-bye.
Scott, the floor is yours.
Yeah, before I motion to adjourn, I wanted to just ask my question of Latasha still. We hadn't gotten back to me. I don't know if she's still there. I see her camera's off. Latasha, I know that there's going to be some tweaks made to this draft budget. Is there a public-facing version of the budget that we can share with our email lists yet? And if not, when will that be available? Okay, it's already on the website.
If I'm not mistaken, John.
Okay, I'll look for it. If I can't find it, I'll let you know. Thank you. And motion to adjourn.
It is online. That is correct. It is.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Did we have 3 votes to take that contingency amount, change that contingency amount? I only heard 2 people.
Hi, Selena.
There you are.
I have the floor.
Selena, there's a motion on the floor. There's a motion on the floor. You don't have the floor. Scott,
Did somebody second it?
No one seconded it. Oh, no one seconded it? Is there a second to the motion? Okay, the motion dies for lack of a second. Selena, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'm definitely where Brian's at when it comes to the contingency. I definitely want us to use some of the speed camera money that we're getting this year and not just the one that we're getting in the future, right? The other question for Latasha, it's any of the $1 million incentive fund money put aside in a line item anywhere in this budget? I don't recall seeing any of it.
No, it's not. But if you'd like to create one, we can. Yeah. But the problem with that is, how do you justify the revenues for that? Because if we put $1 million in, I have to have, as an expense, I have to have a revenue. So what's the revenue?
So even if it was some money, I didn't say the whole entire $1 million, but even if it was some money, I definitely
right. But I still have to have money. Right. I get it. But I still, even if I do 100,000, I still have to have a revenue source.
Okay.
Because in order to get it balanced. So how do I? And I'm asking. I'm not being facetious, I'm asking, how do you want me to capture that with the revenue side?
So I think that's something you guys are gonna have to figure out. But I think from what I'm hearing, it's like a lot of the speed camera money that's currently being that was gathered from this year and potentially the future year. Some of it could fall into safety, so some of them is covered. So if we have anything from contingency, I would also like for some of the money to be considered moved for contingency into the line item.
Into a line item for what, Selena?
For the $1 million incentive fund. I know in the past last year we didn't have any, and basically what we did is we did a budget amendment to be able to move some money in there.
Yeah, I get that. I can do the expense. I don't have a problem with the expense. What I'm asking is the revenue.
I said contingency fund, if there's any.
So you want me to change the contingency to?
Just a small amount. You said right now it's at 180 something, right? So I think we all agree we wanted about 50.
I think Latasha, what Selena's trying to say, and sorry, Selena, cutting you off, is she would like an expenditure for economic development. She's hoping that we can take some of the money expended for contingency and apply it to an economic development incentive fund line item, I think is what she's saying. I don't know if there's support for that from the rest of the council, but I think that's what she's saying. And, you know, I don't know if I support that necessarily, because I kind of like the idea of having flexibility in the incentive fund to pull from where we need to. So I don't know that that's where we'll go, but that's what Selena's asking. Brian, I see your hand raising you before.
Well, I thought the economic development fund was in the reserves. I thought, yeah. And so when we had an expense, we took it out of the reserves.
Yes,
We took it there.
coming from. Yeah.
That's right. That's the way I understand it too. Scott, did you want to say something?
Only that I don't support that idea. I think I understand why it's being asked for, but I don't think it makes sense for us to do that, because we don't know how much we're going to spend on the economic incentive fund, right?
I agree. So we'll just leave that as is, Latasha. Okay. So no worries about that. What I would ask before we have a motion to adjourn is, I have some notes here. I know Latasha and staff has taken notes as well. I'm going to send them to Latasha and staff. And if anybody else has notes, just so everybody's on the same page with what we discussed and what might be cut and what might be added. And then we can just make sure we don't have any oversight. So I'd ask that folks take some time right after this meeting to get that done if they do have notes. And I think that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, staff, Latasha,
Thank you, staff.
everybody, Ray. Really good work on a really